It's time for us to dedicate another vPub to dirt, because this is the type of dirt that if you were to burn it and then use that smoke to dry barley, what a thing it does. Quite incredible. So tonight what we're gonna do for our 3rd Peat Fest, the first one we did was to talk about peat in general back in 2022. Last year we did a world of peat, talking about peat from all over the globe. But tonight we're gonna narrow it right into a very specific island. We're gonna focus on the island that's known for its peated whiskey more than any other spot on the planet, and that is, of course, the island of Islay. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. I hope you're all doing very well, as always. Are you comfortable? Are you sitting with something particularly peaty in the glass tonight? If you are able to sip along with us, of course. Not everyone can. That's okay. Some of you are tuning in very early in the day. But for those of us that are joining and sitting down together live, maybe tonight is the night that we've wheeled out something that's a wee bit peaty. Maybe even we've gone with something that's from the island of Islay, just to kind of get in the mood and get in the swing of things. We've done this now for 3 years in a row. Like I said in the intro there, back in 2022, we kind of just covered in a very, very general sense, in the context of whiskey, what peat actually is and the impact that it has on whiskey, how it came about, why we use it, how many people love it, and all of that kind of stuff back in 2022. Last year, I kind of blew things out a bit and I started to look at all the peated whiskies, or let's say smoky whiskies, that were available across the globe. And I asked a lot of questions. Why should Scotland be exporting malted barley? Why should we be exporting peat and all of these things? And why can't other countries across the globe just kind of focus on what maybe makes their spirit particularly special for wherever they are on the planet? Their local peat, perhaps, or other combustibles that they can dry barley with and get some interesting flavours and takes. That was last year, 2023. In 2024, we're going to dial it right back into the epicenter, for a lot of us, the epicenter of peaty whiskies, smoky whiskies, and that is the magical Isle, the Queen of the Hebrides, the west coast of Scotland's Isle of Islay. It is a fabulous place. Anybody that's been around this channel long enough will just know how many hours I've dedicated to my worship of the island and all of the whiskies that come from there. But through those whiskies from the island, I've been drawn close to the place itself. And I tend to find when I visit Ireland now, I like to spend at least as much time exploring things outside of whiskey on the island. I love the pace, I love the feel, the vibe, the weather, I love the scenery, I love all of it. We all do. The island's struggling a little bit with infrastructure, with visitors and accommodations and all of these types of things. It's challenging times ahead, but these are positive challenge oftentimes. And I remember speaking to one of the locals on Islay when I talked about all of these people evangelizing about their whiskey and evangelizing about the place, and does that trouble them? Does it put them off with the amount of tourists that they get there? And she said to me, I'd rather it was this than back in the days when we couldn't sell our whiskey. She remembers distilleries being closed, mothballed, shuttered, jobs lost, never to be seen again, potentially. But for the last 30 years, we would say, we've seen something of a renaissance there. Certainly the last 25 years, Ardbeg and Bruichladdich coming back to life. We've seen Port Ellen coming back to life. It'll see light. It'll see spirit running in 2024. Quite incredible. Port Natruan from Elixir Distillers is well underway. We've got Ardnahoe that's been established since 2018 now. 2018, we saw Ardnahoe getting established. And it's going to break double digits for distilleries on the island of Islay within this decade. Quite an incredible renaissance, especially when you consider that there's an interview online with Bessie Williamson of Lefroy from the late 60s, where she talks about how people wouldn't necessarily want to drink a Lefroy, a very powerfully potent peaty whisky. Rather, it was something that's used to season and flavour blended scotch. How times have changed in the years that I've been alive. It's quite incredible to see. But that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go round the island of Islay. We're going to start on the west coast. We're going to move north, northeast. Then we're going to come south and we're going to finish up on the Kildalton coast. And for every distillery, I'm just going to select a bottle, a pick, my own personal pick, my own personal opinion that I think best represents that distillery. And I'm going to put it over my shoulder here and just go through the distilleries that we can currently buy whisky from. Of course, two of them, Port Ellen, we can't. Ardnahoe have not released anything yet. But the distilleries that we can buy whisky from, there'll be a bottle representing it over my shoulder. What will be interesting, though, is that not all of the bottles I select will be official distillery bottlings. And that's for various reasons, and we'll discuss that tonight. But before we get into that, let's do, well, I'll get the housekeeping after I've welcomed you all in. Let's jump into the lounge while everyone's pulling up a bar stool, getting their feet up, getting their drams poured, getting settled, saying hello to each other, so that I can welcome all of you beautiful whisky folk and dedicated barflies. Welcome, everyone. It's great to hang out with you again on another Thursday night. Cheers. Dirt. Yeah, that's what it is. Let's see how we're doing. Remember, if you're trying to get my attention, just type Aquavite or at Aquavite. It pops up orange for me, and I've got a better chance. I've seen your comments. My goodness, over 250 of you in already. So be quite a lot of comments coming in. I'll try and keep up as best I can. Just a solo session again tonight. So hopefully I can get a wee bit more interaction with you all. Alistair Gray is here. Good to see you, buddy. Good evening, Aquavite and the Barflies. He's changed his logo to a Glasgow 1770 logo. I suspect, Alistair, that's because your scalp has been blown off your head by a certain bottle of Glasgow 1770. Maybe not. Maybe it's something else. There's the General Zeitgeist from Glasgow is fantastic right now. But the Manthania cask has taken everybody by surprise. We're all absolutely loving it. If I'm honest, I may have purchased a wee backup bottle for my selfish self. Excess to Scotch is here. Good to see you. Saying yes, Pete, fantastic. I'm glad you're looking forward to it, buddy. It's good to have you in. And Hellswood is here as well. Wonderful to have you, Helen. Cesare is in as well, saying good evening, Barflies and Aquavite. Nazdrovie from Poland, cheers. Nazdrovie straight back at you, Cesare. Cheers to you, my friend. Cheers. Stephen Eckert. Stephen Eckert. I wonder, Stephen, if that's a new name. Is it the first time I've welcomed you? If it is, I'm glad I caught your name. Welcome in, my friend. Mirko is here from Germany, saying good evening, Roy. I had 2 fantastic days at the Whisky Fair in Nuremberg. Met so many well-known faces there. I wonder if you bumped into my pal, Doc McAllen, Fine and Rare. He was sending us images back from the fair. Looked very, very interesting. Quite a decent size as well. Max Kreitner from Austria saying, good peaty evening, my friend. Good peaty evening right back to you and Christina, Max. Good to have you in, buddy. And Too Slow is here saying, hi, Roy Aquavite. Straight back at you, Rob. I hope you're doing well. Too Slow. Gav's Drams. Good evening, Roy. Thanks for your kind thoughts. I am back. Okay, this is what I was... There's things to celebrate tonight, and I'll get to the big thing that we need to celebrate tonight. But a very big thing to celebrate is our pal Gav. I was worried about him for a couple of weeks there. He took a wee trip, a wee holiday in the NHS hotel, and he wasn't in a hurry to get back home, but he messaged me a few days ago to say that he'd get back home and he's back on the mend again. Let's raise a wee glass to our pal Gav's Drams now that he's back in good form. Gav, maybe even you've treated yourself to a wee tablespoon of whiskey to sit with us tonight. To your very best of health, Gav. Slanchava to you, buddy. Cheers. And Helen is saying nothing but soda water for me. Andy's sipping a Loch Lomond peated single grain before moving on to a Port Charlotte 10. You're on the soda water tonight, Helen. There's probably a reason for it. I hope it's not anything to do with poor health. I hope it's a decision for positive things. Good to have you both in. Graham Young from Canada saying, cheers, Aquaviti, very peaty. Smoky cheers to you over a decadent 27-year-old Bowmore in a glass. Spoiled myself tonight. Pushing the boat out, 27-year-old Bowmore. What a treat. Fantastic. I hope you're loving it. Savour it, won't you, Graham? I'll see you in Limburg, won't I? Justin Wan is saying, about to leave the flight to Bali. Oh, wow. A few days of warm weather. We'll try and jump in and out on the way to the airport. Justin, I hope you have a fantastic holiday. You've bought me a generous dram as you disappear too, my friend. I hope you have a great time in Bali. Sounds fantastic. Warm weather. It's been a long time here. Cheers, Justin. Thank you for your dram. And a dram as well from our pal in Nova Scotia, Jimmy Legg. He's saying I should mention that all of the cool kids will be on Islay on October the 1st, 2024. Be there or miss out on everything. I better make a note of that, Jimmy, right? October 1st. I wonder what's in my calendar for October 1st. This has started as a crazy year already. Jimmy, be interested to see what your plans are if you've nailed down your itinerary anymore. Stevie A is back here. Good to see you, Steve, our bearded friend from the States. It's been a wee while since I've seen him, but he's celebrating being a member of Barfly for the last 48 months and saying, been too long since I made it to the vPub. Never an issue. Your stool is always sitting here waiting for you next time you drop in. Stevie, thank you for your support over the last 48 months. Jimmy Legg, thank you for your dram. Cheers, buddy. A wee light flashing over here in the corner. I don't know what that's about. Don't want any of the lights popping. That's happened on a vPub in the past before. Tom is in saying, Whiskey and Wine Trails Tom. He's saying, good evening, Roy. I'll be catching most of the Peatfest on replay as I'll be meeting with our good friend Drew for a smoky dram in a bit. Fantastic. Drew from Arizona. And Tom, Whiskey and Wine Trails, also over there in Arizona as well, getting to meet up. That's one of the most amazing things, these barflies getting to meet each other through the vPub, finding out that they live relatively local to each other and managing to meet up. It's happening all over the planet. It's fabulous to hear the stories and see the photos. I love it. AROM, that looks like a new name. He's saying, Aquaviti, I've recently listened to all of your shows from the past year and finally got a chance to watch live for the first time. Greetings from Finland. Eero, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. But AROM, thank you for your endurance and managing to listen to me, all the stuff I've put out over the last year. It's very much appreciated, my friend. It's nice to welcome in a new face too. Cheers to you. Finland, Barry Bradley, that's another new name. Great timing. Planning the visit later in May. Not on a Kalmark ferry, though. Yeah, the ferries, there's real problems right now with Kalmark generally, and it's looking like it's going to get quite crunchy around the time of Fishil. Please double check your travel arrangements if you're traveling for Fishil at the end of May especially, but ferries are proving to be something of a challenge for us here in Scotland right now. Just the way of it. Danny Keenan celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 13 months, saying cheers for the dram and the dosa, Roy. So Danny and I got to meet up with Eric Cunliffe. Eric Cunliffe's over here for Springbank School. So he's down there in Campbelltown right now. He kicks off the school session next week. He's there for a week and he's just lounging and relaxing down there in Campbelltown right now. I hope he's having a great time. But I was able to meet up with them both at the same time in town along with Peter Lee, and we had a great wee night playing. Is it a Speyside? In the pot still. It was terrific. Dornpass Whiskey, Tim, good to see you, buddy. A rare day off this time of year for to be here live, starting with a Benrinnes 13 cast strength, first full bourbon, then on to Bruichladdich 18 before the peat. You're doing it in the right order, I think. Tell me what you think of that Bruichladdich 18-year-old, Tim. Fantastic. I think you've maybe doubled up on the drams there. So it's a double pour instead of a single. Cheers, Tim. Let me know how you got on with those drams. George L., good to see you, George. You're saying good evening from the Arizona boys. Love Peat, but in balance. Looking forward to this vPub. Scott Allen, Drew from Arizona, Whiskey Wine Trails. So George L. is an Arizona boy as well. Of course, Scott Allen, Scott and Becky. We have to remember our Scotts and Beckys of the world. They're also from Arizona. Quite incredible. Superb. Roger Dram is in. Good to see you. Whiskey with Molly Ben. Conrad's here. Black Fen. Fantastic. And of course, there he is. Peathead is here. We can't have a Peatfest without our pal in the Netherlands, Frank Peathead, but he's here in attendance, of course. It's probably his priority vPub. And Ben is saying, even in Roy Aquaviti, I'll move on to Islay, but in a bit, but starting with a Kilkerran 12. Why am I not reading very well tonight? Is my eyesight a bit? Maybe I need to zoom the font, the text size up bigger again. Tim is saying the black and white movie Whiskey Island. Yes, black and white movie Whiskey Island is a fun watch for whiskey folk. Love it. I think her interview is in that movie. That is exactly the interview I'm talking about and the video I'm talking about. If you want to see it, it's fantastic. It's all about Whiskey Island, the island of Islay. It's black and white from the 1960s. Vintage footage. Just search for the Whiskey Island, and you should see it. It's just a fantastic watch. Terrific stuff. Change days as well. Okay, good. I'm going to try and do the very, very best I can to keep in touch with all of you guys as we go throughout tonight. But a wee bit of housekeeping at the top of things. An incidental thing first. Dramface podcast is out. 26 is out. 25 dropped a couple of weeks ago. 26 dropped to members on Monday. But Saturday morning at 6 a.m, episode 26 will drop. Why am I talking about that in the vPub when I keep saying that I have to have differentiation between my Dramface world and the Aquavitae world? Well, a lot of you feedback, oh, I didn't realize the podcast had dropped. If you're looking to be notified of when podcasts drop or anything drops on over at Dramface, you can sign up to the newsletter there. And of course, if you're a member, you also get a separate newsletter to come out to tell you exactly when the podcasts drop. And you usually get it 5 or 6 days ahead of the public release that goes out on all services, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, whatever service you use to consume your podcasts. For patrons, you're looking for a lock-in for March. I'm looking to hang out with you too. We've got some news regarding the next Aquavitae bottling. I need your help to decide the strategy there, what we do with it. We're quite mature now. I'm kind of ready to pull the trigger on it. So we're hoping to get together on Sunday night this week, hopefully 9 o'clock. vPub, it's just for patrons only, and Patreon-averse supporters in the YouTube membership too. 9 o'clock Sunday night. It's just the way the weekend's opened up. It was either going to be this weekend or next weekend, and right now I'm 90% locked into Sunday night. So for all you guys who support me and have supported me over the years on Patreon and beyond, I just thank you for your support. I look forward to spending a bit of time with you on Sunday night. But let me get on to the big news. The big news. There's a fella in the community in the background. You might know him. You might not know him. But I want to raise a glass. I want to make a big noise for this guy. He helps me in an amazing way, a very, very huge, when it comes to grind, when it comes to inspiration, when it comes to making things look and work better on the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. He also helps significantly in the Dramface space too. The way that Dramface works and flows and functions is down to this guy. And you also hear his name in the podcast too. But he and his wife came home this week with a brand new member of our community. The best kind of news, really. So I'm going to raise a wee glass to welcome in Rob Halford and Lauren Halford's new son. And listen, just please get those Glencairns clinking in the chat as well, and raise a glass for Charlie Harry James Halford. Welcome, wee man. Lauren and Rob, I hope you're tired but happy. Best kind of news. Slàinte everyone. Well done. He was keeping it quiet. He's not really made a lot of noise about it in the chats and things like that. I think he's just probably ensconced in his little space, just trying to work out his new life. That's joining. He's got a daughter as well. So he now has one of each. He's got a wee daughter and a wee son, which is just fantastic. Good stuff. Congratulations, Rob and Lauren. Amazing stuff. All right, let's get our peat face on, shall we? Let's start walking around the peaty landscape that is Islay. Now, not all the distilleries on Islay produce peaty spirit all of the time. In fact, you might be surprised just how many distilleries out there produce unpeated spirit too. Of course, Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich spring to mind. They're known for their softer styles, maybe a more West Coast Highland style of unpeated malt, or softer style, a sherry style from Bunnahabhain, let's say, quite a coastal, saline, pure style from Bruichladdich, unpeated. We won't be talking about those tonight. And we won't be talking about the unpeated production from Ardbeg, the unpeated production from Colilla, the unpeated production from various other distilleries from time to time. But anything that's peated, that's on the cards tonight. In my glass tonight, and I'm just about to finish it off. I've had a wee dram pop in from David Hong, so I'll use this to take the last sip of this glass. David Hong has bought me a dram. No comment or anything, David, buddy, but thank you very much. And Herben is also celebrating being a member of the Barflies for the last 4 months as well. 4 months of education, he's saying, and it won't go to waste. Herben, thank you so much. Thank you for your support. And David Hong, thank you very much for your generous drama, friend. Cheers, Slanchiva. There's 2 sips in this. Let's not throw it back. Let's savour it. So, yes, we will be focusing fully on the peaty things. But before I go into this, and before I even did the first ever Peatfest, I was a little bit nervous about just how much of my community, how many of you, what kind of ratio of you are into peated whiskies? How many of you love it? And I did a poll back then, so there's no need to do a poll every time. It's going to be kind of similar in numbers each time, but I'll remind you of what that ratio was back then. I gave people the option to say they love it, it's their preferred style, or they could say they like it a lot, but among other styles, occasionally enjoy it, not really their thing, they suffer it, or they cannot drink peated whiskies. People that said it's not really their thing and they suffer it was 4%, and people that said they couldn't drink it was only 1% of the community. So I am a wee bit kind of wondering if I'm kind of isolating 5% of my kind of audience tonight, the folk that tune in. But I hope that as we talk about the topics and concepts of peat, that there are other things that pop up that make it worthwhile for the people that are not really into peaty whiskies yet. What I tend to find with peaty whiskey is that you do tend to, sometimes you can end up in love with it, and it's difficult to get out the peat cul-de-sac even after you've declared it's something that you don't like. Like so many things in whiskey, it just becomes one of those things that you learn how to understand it and how to love it and appreciate it. Usually, a wee visit to the magical island will fix you right up and make you fall in love with it. But what that essentially means is that 18% say they enjoy it occasionally, but 58% say they like it a lot, and 19% say it's their preferred style. So really, I'm preaching to close to 90%, over 90% if you include them all. You still have a place in your heart for peat, and some of you, it is your preferred style. So hopefully it is still valid. I do kind of want to do this annually. If I'm in the mood for it, I always just follow my mood and my whim. But I think that, especially when we talk about Scotch whisky, peat is such an integral, characterful, seductive element of Scotch whisky that I think it's worthwhile to dedicate a vPub just to focus on this really, really interesting incidental thing. The only reason that we have this flavour in our whisky is because it was once upon a time a fuel source. It was simply the fuel that they used to dry the barley, the malted barley. After the malting, they had to dry the barley to freeze it in that condition, if you like. And to dry it out, they would dry it out over a peat fire because peat was their fuel. So this was all over the Highlands, all over the west coast of Scotland, all over the north of Scotland, all over the islands. As time went on, Islay has become, especially over the last 50 or 60 years, the bastion, that last kind of course, we've got distilleries out there on the mainland that produce peated whiskies. Consider Ardmore's a perfect example up in the Highlands. We've got Highland Park that's got peat in Orkney. We've got peat from Talisker and Skye. There's peat all over the place. But Islay became synonymous with that peaty, smoky style. Especially when you move to the south coast, there were the smoke and the peat and the sometimes quite iodine-y, challenging flavours would come from the Kildalton coast, from Laphroaig, Lagavulin and Ardbeg, and we'll get to them tonight. But let's start way over on the west coast with the newest distillery, let's say, that you can actually buy product from, and that is the farm distillery of Kilchoman. I think everybody knows what whiskey I'm going to put out here as my pick to represent Kilchoman. People that have been watching me for long enough will know what I pick. But some of you will be expecting something else. And the something else will come a wee bit later. But the very last sip in my glass is the one I'm going to pick. Kilchoman's a strange one. It's not unique in Islay, but when it comes to the ability to try Kilchoman malt, you have one choice and one choice only, and that is Kilchoman distillery bottlings. Independent bottlings, there may be some private casks and things like that out there in existence, but independent bottlings, they just don't exist. Kilchoman has always had trouble trying to release enough to its fans and the people that want to buy its malt whiskey, and at the same time try and lay other stocks down for longer term maturation and future projects and things, that they've never really opened up to trading casks at all. So if we do want to talk about Kilchoman, we have to talk about them through their official distillery releases. Is that a bad thing? Thankfully, no. It's a good thing. Why is it a good thing? Because Kilchoman have been doing things more or less right. There have been some... They have had some strange decisions in the past. I think there have been releases from Kilchoman in the past that have come out and they've just not been ready. Some of the early releases of what's in my glass right now were a wee bit sharp and jaggy around the edges. It's always a wee bit spirit forward what's in my glass right now, but in the past it could be quite challenging. Some of their 100% Islay editions, specifically the 4th edition that I've still got on my shelf right now, just to remind me how rough some young whiskies can actually be. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. The 100% Isleys are glorious today. They've moved on considerably. They're much more experienced, they have deeper stocks, and there's probably less pressure on them to release just for the sake of releasing. In time, they've established a really, really interesting core range, and not, well, let's say it, when it comes to the core range, they've never had to rely on age statement. There have been vintages and there have been special releases with age statement. Famously in 2023, they released a 16-year-old, and the less that we talk about that, the better, because it took the wind out of a lot of people that had been following Kilchoman since their first release back in, when was it, 2008, 2009? People that have been following that journey for, what is that, 19 years now. When they brought out that 16-year-old, it was £204. Super expensive. Not that it mattered. I mean, it sold out. Everybody that wanted it, that could afford it, probably went out and chased it and managed to get their hands on it. I didn't buy it at £204. I'm not interested. Got to try a wee sample of it at the festival. It was tasty enough whiskey. It really was quite good. £204 good? I don't know. It's quite a subjective thing, isn't it? But for me, no, too expensive. But what I really felt, and I especially felt it at that event, that festival, is that they had a lot of their fans were disappointed. A lot of the Kilchoman lovers, the people that really enjoyed the product, was a wee bit disappointed in that. Now, we have to remember that that's probably really quite precious liquid, and they're not going to release it out there unless it's viable, financially viable, or it makes good business sense to them. But business sense doesn't just mean profit, right? Business sense is a kind of long-term thing as well. And we often say it, but I'll say it again, just because you could doesn't mean that you should. And I feel like it was a wee bit of a misstep. That said, last year was also the year that I fell in love with Kilchoman's Sanic. Their Sanic is their kind of more sherried expression. It's bourbon and sherry that's in this. You'll find that might be a bit of a theme tonight. But you can see if I hold it up against their Mahir Bay, these kind of represent the two kind of mainstream core range releases. You can see quite a difference in colour here between the two. The Mahir Bay is much paler, and the Sanic has got a nice kind of rich copper, pale mahogany kind of hue to it. They're both excellent whiskies. They really, really are. I'm going to come back to this Kilchoman a wee bit later, and I'm going to put it up against another couple of whiskies. Hopefully we'll have time to do it, and a little bit of a kind of sherry bourbon cask mix face-off type thing. But for now, if I put the Sanic back out of the way, for my Kilchoman pick, I'm going to put forward this wee 46% non-chill filtered, no colour added, says so on the label, thing of quite remarkable evolution in their Mahir Bay. And the reason is, I know that so many of you would pick that Sanic. I know that you would. There's so much more rich fruit and depth, cask-driven flavour in that whiskey than this one. This one is sitting very much on the kind of cool, light, outdoor, grassy smoke style. It's quite a farmy note generally in Kilchoman for me, but certainly on this Mahir Bay. However, it's my preferred style of whiskey. That refill bourbon, first fill bourbon, that type of style, even when we're talking about peaty styles, I would probably 6.5 times out of 10 pick that. If I was going to be taking it away to a desert island and I could only take one, then I think it would probably often be the bourbon cask maturation. Not all the time, it's very mood driven. And as we'll touch upon it throughout tonight, sherry, even PX sherry, very rich sherries, and peat work very, very well. But for Kilchoman's pick, I'm going to pop the Mahir Bay up. Make sure it stays in shot. What say you for your Kilchomans? Danny is saying, what I'm buying this week, Roy. By the way, the 1770 Manzanilla is very nice. Oh, Danny, you're in Scotland as well, so you were able to get that. I'm very glad that you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it too. I've gone back to it quite a few times over the last few days. Yes, it's good stuff. Everyone is saying, ahoy malt mates, good to see you. And Chris is saying, just got home from work. What did I miss? We've only got to Kilchoman so far, buddy. Graham Young has bought me a dram. He's saying, all set and moving and travelling around the Misty Isle with you, Roy. Kilchoman Distillery Edition, 15-year single barrel bourbon cask to start. Then we'll travel. My goodness, Graham, you're living it up tonight. You're doing it well. A 27-year-old Bowmore, and then off to Kilchoman for the Distillery Edition 15-year-old single barrel bourbon as well. Great stuff. Sandra is saying the 16-year-old is €285 in Italy. Too high for me. Too high, Sandro. I agree with you. I've tried it. It's good whiskey. There's nothing, we can't knock the quality of the whiskey. It's amazing to celebrate the fact that Kilchoman have 16-year-old spirit. We're still going to love the distillery. We're still going to love the spot and the story behind it. But it's off a dear. For me, it's too dear. A dram has also come in from Stephen Wilson, and he's just saying aquavite. Cheers, Roy. Stephen, sorry I missed that a wee bit earlier. Glad I was able to catch it. In order to raise a glass to you for your dram, Stephen, I need to get something else in the glass. So I've got more glasses than I normally would have out tonight. I've actually got 8 glasses out in front of me tonight. So that's 5 my normal glasses, and then 3 glasses for a little kind of face-off that I'm going to do towards the end of tonight. So we'll try and keep the pours small and in check. It's a Thursday night, it is a school night after all, but I'm going to move on quite quickly. Now that I've decided, we'll come back to Kilchoman a wee bit later. Now that we've put forward our placeholder for peat, peated whiskey, peated malt from Kilchoman on Islays West Coast, we'll move inland a wee bit and we'll come to Bruichladdich. Now you all know what I'm going to pour for Bruichladdich, but copy and paste for what we said about Kilchoman for Bruichladdich. For a lot of it, let's say. You'll recognise this square-shouldered, dark green bottle. Try and keep the pores reasonable, right? It's a wee bit bigger than I intended, but okay. It's okay, it's good whiskey. I'll enjoy it. You'll recognise this bottle, right? This is, of course, Bruichladdich Port Charlotte. There was once upon a time, Port Charlotte was a distillery. If you go down to Port Charlotte and visit the town itself, you will see distillery buildings still standing. But Bruichladdich brought back the brand and used it for spirit heavily peated spirit that they produce at Bruichladdich Distillery, just a wee bit up the road from Port Charlotte, a wee bit north. This is fully natural whiskey with a 10-year age statement on it, 50% ABV, just ticks all the boxes for the whiskey enthusiast. It has almost every single time I go back to it, it seems to remind me just how much it's got better over the years. Seems to have got better and better and better, or let's say more reliably, consistently good. Maybe they're both the same thing, but there is a slight difference. I think they've managed both. I think they've brought consistency and they've also improved their product. Let's go in to this one after that Kilchoman. Wow. So much more casky than the Kilchoman. A big hit of vanilla, sweet vanilla, ice and sugar, creaminess. Bags of smoke and peat. But on the back of the Kilchoman is nosing. It was nosing like a quite outdoorsy thing, that grassy kind of hayfield and farm type element. Whereas this one, this is warmer. It's just amazing because normally I would associate a lot of outdoor smoky peat with the Port Charlotte, but just sipping it in contrast with after the Kilchoman, there's a warmth to this. I always talk about that with peat smoke. It's kind of warm indoor, kind of sometimes a wee bit sooty peat, that kind of thing. And other things remind me of kind of campfires or smoke on the breeze and that kind of stuff. Anyway, let's raise a wee glass to Stephen Wilson and say thanks for the dram. Oh, wow. Quite amazing to sip these whiskies. The profile, if you were to describe the profile to somebody who'd never tried it, and then try and distinguish between Kilchoman and Port Charlotte, I think you might be, a lot of the notes I think would be very, very similar. But sipping that straight in the back of Kilchoman, it's really quite different. There's quite an oiliness to it. There's quite a weight. There's quite a mouthfeel. The ABV is helping it, no doubt. 4% ABV, a wee bit higher too. There's just quite a richness and weight. It's a wee bit a kind of tannic note, maybe, like black tea, fruit tea, maybe something like that. But jam, maybe jam, berry jam. Sometimes in Bruichladdich spirit, you look for a lactic or a creaminess or a light cheese or something like that. I do get it from time to time. It's really, I'm not getting much of it there at all. But sometimes sipping it in contrast with other things, I do pick it up. It's a big, generous dram come in from, well, Daniel Williams has come in first. He said, remember to hit a like and subscribe to make Roy happy. Yes, only if you're enjoying the content, of course. But the likes thing, we've been experimenting with that like thing. So in my window right now, I've got 28 likes up. So it's obviously needing refreshed. That was a long time ago. So if I refresh the window right now, the likes should probably update to something like, where are we? 133. Thank you all very much. That's amazing. It's already fantastic. So what it does is it lets other people coming in realize that this kind of 2+ hour chat session on a Thursday night is legitimate content, and we're here because we love whiskey, and there's some valuable information occasionally can be shared. It does mean a lot, and YouTube seems to like it too. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for reminding everyone, and cheers to you all. Thank you. I used your photo in the quiz last week, Daniel. I hope you caught that. Thanks. Cheers, buddy. But here's another dram in from our friend, our mysterious friend, Wook, who's been appearing recently and been very super generous, buying lots of Aquaviti Barfly memberships for everyone who watches so that they can get access to the emoji and things, colour up the chat with whiskey and channel themed emoji. But he's been also very generous to me, Wook, as well. He's also come on board and supported me on Patreon, but there's no messages opened up yet. So he's remaining mysterious. It's interesting. I would like to have a discussion. I'd like to have a wee chat. But look, thank you once more. Thank you for your drama, friend. Cheers. And Graham Fraser, my pal Graham, celebrating being a member for 47 months. My first Gateway Single Malt was a 1990s Ardbeg 10. Incredible. You've been around for a long time, Graham. The stuff that's rattling around in your head is the stuff of whiskey wonder. So what can we say? What is copy and paste from Kilchoman to Port Charlotte? Well, you know the deal. Recently, Bruichladdich released an 18-year-old. That's, of course, not under the focus tonight. That's unpeated. It was £150. I bought it. I loved it. It's really good. It's pricey. It hurt. It was difficult to hand over that money, and it might not be something I'm able to replace once it's finished. The job's done. I'm not unhappy to have it. The Port Charlotte 18-year-old came out now as well, but it's £175. And I say, stop. I'm done. I'm not going to take one for the team. I'm not going to charge out there and spend £175 on Port Charlotte 18-year-old. I don't want to encourage that. And it might be you've got 101 reasons to justify why, because of how little stock you have, because of how gorgeous the liquid is, because of how precious and valuable the liquid is. And if you were to sell those casks on the open market, how much money you would be able to make. And we should maybe be thankful and appreciative that you're bringing us this 18-year-old at £175, but it's too much. How much space is there out there for premiumized whiskies? How many people out there loving and knowing the malt actually know your story and know what you make and care about it? And how many of them have invested in you since you came back to life in 25 years ago now, 24 years ago? I will be wrong, no doubt. I will be wrong. But it feels to me like there aren't as many as everyone that's making premium whiskey right now seem to think. It's disappointing. And that's part of the reason, let me say this now, part of the reason I did this vPub tonight focusing on Islay is because I wanted to help my community salve their disappointment, their upset, and feeling disconnected from something that they've been connected to for so long. They would have been counting down the days for a good age statement to return from Bruichladdich, especially with the Port Charlotte branding. A good age statement from the Port Charlotte branding, they would have been excited for that, only for it to be released and them to realise that they can't participate. £100 is a lot for a bottle of whiskey. It's a lot to justify to our families. It really is. £50, £75 even. It's just very, very expensive. It's an expensive pastime. But £175, I think you're asking a lot of the whiskey. It will be unique. There won't be a lot of Port Charlotte 18-year-olds to choose from. It is unique. But it's not unique in terms of good whiskey. There's millions of it. The other thing to copy and paste from Kilchoman is the fact that there just isn't a lot. There are private casts of Bruichladdich, and we do see independent releases of Bruichladdich, but it's not very common. And we don't see much peated Bruichladdich when it is independent. So I am forced to go and pick an official release from Bruichladdich, even though I'm a wee bit annoyed about the recent pricing. But fortunately, it's a nice bottle. It's already at the peak of what they can charge for this. The RRP on this bottle is £60. You can get it less. You can get it a wee bit cheaper than that. But £60 for a 10-year-old whiskey. I know it's 50% ABV, fully natural, and it's good liquid too. Everything that we're asking. £60 is where it's at. If it starts to push above that, you're starting to get carried away with yourself. You need to keep your fans engaged, because I think this is the cheapest Port Charlotte there is. If we go to any of the special releases, the MRCs, the the wine cask releases or anything like that, they get more and more and more and more expensive. Yes, they're vintage and everything, I understand. You need to keep something accessible. That's why I'm putting this one forward. I wish I could put something forward that can show and demonstrate just how fantastic the product is that you're making there. This does a good job of it. £60, you're hitting the ceiling. It's a 10-year-old whiskey. Yes, it's 50% ABV. We pay for it. Wook has done it again. He's done his thing. He's donated 50 Aquavitae memberships. Please do your worst with it. Take the membership, sign up, see if you like it, see if you want to stay on board. Of course, it helps me in the long term if you do, but Wook is certainly helping me tonight as well. Thank you so much. And Dornpass Whiskey is saying Bruichladdich 18 is sublime and an expensive treat. That's in one sentence, Tim. You've summarised my feelings on the Bruichladdich 18 over the course of the last few vPubs that I've talked about it. Why is that happening? Let me see where my keyboard thing has gone here. I need to open that up again. I think I've lost it. There's no way I can interact with you without that. So pop that back out again so that I can get caught up. What say you about, well, I say Bruichladdich, but specifically that's the distillery, but of course their peated malt is Port Charlotte. I picked that one up from Tim, Dornpass Whiskey, and everybody's grabbing a wee Aquavitae membership, thanks to our pal, our mysterious pal, Wook. PC10 is on my perma-shelf, says Rob Smith. Good to have you in, Rob. I would agree. I think it's, if you were to pick a Guardian of Islay these days, we're maybe going to cover that towards the end of the session tonight, you would be, for a lot of us, we would be hard pushed to choose between our Ardbeg 10 and our Port Charlotte 10, both fully natural stuff. I think it's a good shout. It really is, Rob. Blair Stevenson, good to see you, Blair. I'm 90% sure Wook is our old pal Neil Patrick Harris. I think, well, I think I would probably have some hint or inclination, but it's wonderful to have him in as a support. Neil Patrick Harris is far more likely to be buying drams and memberships in US dollars rather than euro. Good to see you in, Blair. Ben Dram Hunter is here too. Good to see you. And Rick Johnson is saying, Roy, we don't know that Wook is a he. That's right. You're absolutely right. So it should be they. Good point, Rick. It remains a mystery, mysteriouser and mysteriouser. Herman's saying, my dilemma, paradox, if you will. I'm actually looking forward to a time where whiskey loses its popularity and distilleries are forced to make the premium stuff available to us. The fallout from that, Herman, and the reason that balance has to be brought to these things, too much greed will tip things over. If you can stop at the point and bring it back to a point of balance, people preserve their jobs. The stories are not boom and bust. The stories are organic growth and sustained success. That's the problem. I know exactly what you're talking about. You're just waiting for it all to crash, and then so much more whiskey becomes a bit more affordable to you again and things. Unfortunately, people lose jobs. Businesses are lost. Consolidation starts to happen, and it's really not a good look. Everyone is saying American bourbons are charging well over 150 for NAS, many under 10 years old. So $200 US for an 18-year-old does not align. It's just crazy times. I know, I understand. There are different dynamics in different markets. Bourbon has really just gone nuts over the last 5 years. Really nuts. It maybe started arguably before that. Scotch is finding the same kind of success and things. And I'm not suggesting that these businesses shouldn't be super successful and earn lots of money and even be quite lucrative. But I think the long-term health of their business should be in the spotlight. And I just don't see all these premium brands, premium, boring, stuffy. How are you going to bring people in? How are you going to bring new people in? How are they going to step on that bottom rung of the ladder when you're lifting it clear off the ground? How are you going to keep it energized? Where's the new blood coming from? Because right now it's too bloody expensive for the stuff to really help people understand the full breadth and full spectrum of Scotch whisky. We've got wonderful variety and affordable Scotch whisky, still available today, and we celebrate it every week in the vPub, really do. But it's representative of only a certain bandwidth, a certain spectrum of Scotch whisky. And the premium stuff, maybe we just have to accept that that's for rich people. But I also think that it seems to be something for greedy people too. And that's not a good look for Scotch whisky. Jimmy Jazz is saying no discussion of Octomore. I haven't even, and that maybe is the only time that Octomore will be discussed. The cheapest Octomore I could find was £161. Some of them were well north of £200. I'm okay, Jimmy. I'm okay. I'll stick to Port Charlotte's. Octomore is a brand, obviously, also made at Bruichladdich. Access to Scottish 10, Port Charlotte 10 is thank you to Kilchoman Loch Gorm. Is a PC10 is a thank you to Kilchoman Loch Gorm. I wonder what you mean, access to Scotchbury. I'm not following your track there, but aye. Maybe I've just not reading you right. Rob Halford's in. Thank you for all the heartwarming messages. Good to see you, Rob. He's saying I wasn't quite sure what was going on when I was being made to watch the vPub second day in. To quote Roy Aquaviti, you're all very dearly loved. There you are, fella. You don't need to sit and watch it all night. I know you've got a brand new shiny thing at home. You're trying to settle in with the family and everything, and just fantastic days. Just savor every moment, buddy. All the best. And Daniel McAvoy saying PC10 was my gateway peated whiskey. Fantastic. It's not shy. It's quite heavily peated too. Cesare saying, hi Roy Aquavita PC10, my favourite too. In Poland, it's €50. Fantastic. It's a decent price. Jimmy Legg is saying, did you read the new Sponge article? It's scathing as is possible for premiumisation. Yeah. And I think that we've all been a wee bit fed up for a while about it, Jimmy, but how many more producers can start to use the premiumization language, even if they don't use that word? Because we had premium, we had super premium, then we had ultra premium, and it was most of it was Diageo speak, if I'm honest. But we just kept hearing this, and even if they weren't using it in their marketing speech, they were certainly using it in their shareholder releases and things. And we just realized, it's really premium. We have to, I think that, is it wrong of me to think of Scotch whisky, a product produced from grain, as a people's drink? Is it wrong? It's not my whisky. It's true, it's not mine. It is right to say it's our whisky. We don't make it, but we make it successful. We consume it. And without the consumer, there is nothing. Donnerpass Whiskey is saying K&L Wine in California has several indie Bruichladdich 18 plus bottles. They are all $350 plus, and Hakushu 12 is the same price as a Bruichladdich 18. It's so much. A lot of it is hype. Remember, hype is when things are artificially inflated, higher than they deserve to be. That is hype. When everybody's talking about something that's good, that's consensus. That's not hype. What we're seeing there is absolutely hype. Greg's Whiskey Guide, Greg in Paris is saying, that's why we have to thank Kalila to exist, for instance, on official bottlings, but also how much liquid they give to independent bottlings as well. Well, the official bottlings of Kalila have gone stratospheric in price. Look at the price of the 18-year-old Kalila, 25-year-old Kalila. It's just, you can't even keep up with it. The price has been ratcheted up so fast. Everyone is saying Aquaviti, my theory is that single malt Scotch is an older person's whiskey that have more disposable income, very luxury. The young go for blends and mixed drinks. Single malt whiskey is too slow for them. I don't believe that that's true, Everwind Chris, but in my experience, I do see a lot of interest in artisanal, savouring, slowing down, consuming less in younger generation. Much more knowledge, much more appreciation. They are ready. I do see it. If we go along the narrative of it's an older person's drink because they have more disposable income, we launch ourselves right back to the 1970s when brown spirits and its old fuddy-duddy image bombed because of brighter, more colourful, more interesting things. Wine, fizzy wine, white spirits, cocktails, mixed drinks, more fashionable things. Whiskey became an old man's luxury, or an old man's drink. It wasn't quite as luxury back then. We can't afford for that to happen again. Whiskey, the wonderful thing about whiskey for me is just how utterly inclusive it is. Anyway, sorry, might not be keeping up with your chat just as much as I normally would. I'll do my best. Ian Bruce is saying, like radio stations, whiskey was a public service and now is all about income. Islay Malt slowly becoming similar to the Irish whiskey market. We are going to try and chip away. There is good news for me to share with you tonight. Ian, stick with it. I do have some good things. Let's push our wee Port Charlotte off to the side as we move into, well, somebody started. Let's just go with it. Did I decide to do that one next? Yes, I did. Let's talk about probably, I have guilty pleasures in branding and things and the way bottles look. But it's strange. I'm not typical because two of my favourite, most aesthetically pleasing bottles are what in the industry is known as tall rounds. One of them is unique because it has some unique embellishments on it. But I'll show you the two of them together. And this one, the Lagavulin, and my right hand we'll come back to a wee bit later. So we've got Lagavulin here and we've got Caol Ila here. I just think that these are just the quintessential, perfectly presented, elegant, timeless, gorgeous things to look at. It's incredible that we're on for what, maybe this Caol Ila branding is maybe, could it be 30 years old now? I think it's about 30 years old now. Whereas Lagavulin, the 16-year-old, is closer to 35 years old now. And this livery and this guy is looking like this. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous to look at. Caol Ila, despite the fact that Caol Ila, this is their 12-year-old at 43%, even their 18-year-old, their 15-year-olds are obviously higher. They tend to be special editions and things. There's other editions out there. 25-year-old also 43%. All Caol Ilas tend to be 43%, just kind of typical Diageo presentation, but we always forgave it. It was always quite an elegant take on Islay whiskey, and we loved it. I tend to have this around, but I'm savouring this. I'm going to be careful with this because when this is finished, I'm not going to replace it. It is wrong to say that I am boycotting Diageo brands because I reserve the right to go out and buy a bottle because somebody has to be doing it for content, for the community, to give feedback to you guys and that type of stuff, to keep you up to speed. If I if I say I'm just never going to buy any of it again, I think I would very quickly have to be forced to change my mind for a specific reason, perhaps. Let's not say boycott, but let's say protest. I'm not buying official products from Diageo right now. And I don't want this vPub to be negative, negative, negative. I want to find positives out of these negatives. But Diageo have made it very, very clear to us that they care not a jot about the whiskey enthusiast, the whiskey drinker. I know all the fantastic things that Diageo may do as a company for Scotch whiskey, for sustainability, for their suppliers, their secondary suppliers, tertiary suppliers, all of these things, for the local communities, for charities, for all of these great things that they do, but they are making an absolute pig's ear of their official releases. Nobody is talking about Diageo products anymore. Nobody's talking about them. As recently as 5 years ago, that was completely different. And if you go back on the vPub 5 years ago, Diageo products, I was talking about me specifically here, were regularly mentioned. Much more recent times, it's become less and less and less. We're just bored of it now. Premiumization, everything that we've talked about previously, we're tired. We've found other places to get the same and better experiences, but not going for official releases. We're either finding independence or we're switching allegiance altogether and going with other producers. My kind of exclamation mark to the end of tonight is going to be something specifically focused on that. But let's stay with Caol Ila. Let's stay with it. I don't want to put Caol Ila 12, Caol Ila 18, Caol Ila 25, any official Caol Ila over here. We are fortunate that there are lots of independents. But Diageo are doubling down and they are cutting off the supply to the cask trade, to independent bottlings as well. They've pulled up the drawbridge again, and suddenly it's going to be harder for us to get their product through indies in the future. Not all indies, not all of the time, but this is frustrating. Whiskey is supposed to be fun. And when people put bigger price tags on it, make it more and more exclusive, and take it away from the people that built up its reputation in the first place, that doesn't feel like fun to me. Fortunately, here's a wee producer that's out there that is fun to me. It does not say Caol Ila on the label, and it may not even be Caol Ila in the bottle. It matters not, because it tastes, to me, a lot like Caol Ila. Better than that, it tells me on the label that to match its 45.8% ABV, it is non-chill filtered and it doesn't add any colour. It's got an age statement on there. It's not 12 years old, it's 8 years old, but it's the same price or cheaper. This is Port Askeig's 8-year-old. Now, forgive me, I'm not up to speed on this one. This is still quite a full bottle, quite a recent purchase. I haven't had this a long time, but they've updated their branding a wee bit. This is the antidote. This is £50 for a fully natural 8-year-old Islay. Don't let the Port Askeig thing throw you. This is single malt whiskey. Regardless of the distillery that this comes from, each separate edition is always a single malt. Port Askeig is always a single malt. And, you know, between you and I, it's almost always Caol Ila, certainly these days. And thankfully, there has been enough of it around for there to be plenty Port Askeig around. Cheers. Light, lemony, bright, cool, outdoor, aromatic, floral even, cool white fruits, green apple, unripe melon, bright, clean, fresh. So many of the notes that you would nail in a Caol Ila. Wow. Wee bit salty too. Wee bit white pepper and salt. Just terrific, elegant, light. It's that kind of when you're in the mood for this style of whiskey, a hike outdoors, on a beach, a visit to Islay. This is the type of thing you want to have in your hip flask. It's easy for Caol Ila. It's easy for my Caol Ila pick. I've still got Kilchoman written up here. Look, I've got all these banners. I've got Kilchoman, Brooklady, forgetting to put it up. I've got Caol Ila. This is supposed to be helping me, and it certainly helps me when I put the chapter markers in later in the night, but I've forgotten all about it. But for Caol Ila, it's the first one, but not the last one that I'm going to be putting forward. Something that is not an official bottling. Gene Kelly saying, here in Albion, I get Port Askeig 55% for $58. It seems to be Caol Ila, but what a great price, Gene, right? And hopefully it's something that you're enjoying as well. A wee drams coming in from sorry, I did get that one from you, Tim. Thank you very much. Clitsty's saying, good to see you. Clitsty's saying, I heard the new branding Port Askeig 8 also has a new recipe featuring some sherry. Would be interesting to do a comparison. Absolutely, it would. And that's another thing to remember about Port Askeig is that each release is going to be from a different parcel of stock. So the profile is going to change, and they celebrate the fact that it changes. And Rick is saying here, oh, you've still got Kilchoman up on screen. Superb. Yeah. I'm a beginner, Rick. I've never done this before. It's difficult to watch yourself. I don't want to watch myself, so that's why I'm forgetting. I'll try and do better from here on in, Rick. Thank you, buddy. Whiskey with Molly saying, we did an SMWS Glen Scotia tasting the other night. One guy refused to score the 93.179 as he was convinced it was actually Caol Ila. Okay, that's odd, isn't it? Danny Hebington is saying, I have an unopened 12-year-old Askeg on the shelf. Same stuff, you think? I've had it for a couple of years now. The 12-year-old, it's going to be different from a different parcel of stock, but I bet you it's a good one, Danny. I've never had a 12-year-old Port Askeg, I don't think. Ian Bruce is saying, one tip, have a hip flask for peat and one for non-peat. There's truth in that. There is absolute truth in that. A peaty hip flask smells like a peaty hip flask for a long time. For a long time. You have to do a lot of rinsing to get rid of the peat, right? Pedro in Brazil. Good to see you, Pedro. You saying hi, Barflies? On the go today and listening podcast style, but it's always better to be with you live. Pedro, it's always better for us to have you here live too. Watching yourself isn't great, obviously, but you're aging well. Thank you, Jimmy Legg. Being very kind tonight, buddy. I'll appreciate it and I'll take more of it. Looking forward to hanging out with you on Sunday night as well, buddy. If you're free, of course. All right. So I'll remove the Kalila. As we move, we're going to stay the northeast though. We're going to stay up there. And of course, where are we going to go? We've selected our Kalila representative, but we have to go up the road a wee bit to its neighbour, to Bunnahabhain. And we're going to pick something from Bunnahabhain. Now, most of us know Bunnahabhain from maybe their 12-year-old, various the Sturature, the various other releases. They're famously their cask strength. It's been 3 years now in the release, pretty well received, fantastic stuff. They do peated product too. Moynia is their brand as they put it out there to the public. If you see Bunnahabhain with Moynia on the label, it's peated, often heavily peated. Stoisha as well, as if you want to see Stoisha, you're going to see Stoisha from an independent bottling. That's peated Bunnahabhain. A perfect example for me to put forward tonight actually would have been the 100 proof signatory vintage Stoisha that was just released very recently, £45 in the UK. Fabulous value. I didn't buy that. I bought the Glentalkers and I bought the Ben Nevis instead. And perhaps with a bit of benefit of hindsight for tonight's vPub, might have been a good one to open and explore with you. But I'm going to open a wee Bunnahabhain. First time I've had this. I thought I'd had it before, but I think I've had the Tochik. It was just called Tochik, which I believe it to just mean in Gaelic, smoky. This is Tochik Ada or Tochik Aga, depending on who you ask. However, if you read the label, they tell us that it's Tochik Aga with a GHAA. This is a new bottle for me. I think the Tochik is the one I had in the past. I think I might have even got it from the airport, but it's very, very recognisable in presentation for what we used to be Brown Stewart and Distell, but it's now CVH Spirits. All natural, 46.3% ABV. This one is, I believe it to be, a mix of bourbon and sherry. And it says rich oak with warm peat and sweet sherry. So this is a first. Oh, it's a bit of a quiet. Yeah. It's not going to give us much of a cork pop. But let's try a wee bit of this Bunnahabhain, just a wee tablespoon. Oh, let's get the noise. Now, coming out, look at the colour of that. It's quite a bit darker than I expected. I'm not sure the Tochik was as dark as that. I might be wrong. Because it's in the dark glass, you don't get to see it. The book is at it again. What are you doing, my friend? We need to communicate. We need to chat. Hey, I'm messaging you inside Patreon. Thank you, buddy. Thank you for another generous vPub. It's not a dram. You're sending in enough to replace these bottles. But thank you, my friend. Slanchavat to you. This is good. On the nose, this is good. I don't think the peat is. I've just based on what I've come off, the Cohoman, the Port Charlottes, certainly, and that Port Askeg, very, very peaty, very smoky. This is much more restrained. This is much more in check. But we've also got a lot of conditioning here from really quite fruity dried fruit. Nice, clean raisin sultana type notes from sherry cask. A sweet sherry cask too. I would have to say that there's Yeah, okay, you can go with the Oloroso style, the drier kind of fruit notes and things. But there's a wee kind of nice maple syrup, sugary sweetness in here that might come from a wee bit of PX. Don't know. Definitely a wee bit of a PX note. If you start looking for it, you can start to find more of it. But much sweeter, much darker, much richer appearance on the nose than I expected. I thought the mouthfeel was going to be bigger. I expected much more of a hit, but actually it's quite elegant on arrival. It's quite light, some light nutmeg and dry spice, a wee bit of clove, lots of that sherry fruit. I believe this to be mostly ex-bourbon with some sherry added. This is playing much more sherry rich than I expected it to be. That's a treat. Buna is very good at doing sherry and sherry style. Buna is very good generally, but this is nice to have an affordable take on peat and sherry. And I have to say, caveating it with the fact that I've been heavy peat tonight, this is softer, this is quieter, this is much more elegant, much more balanced. I don't think it's got the robustness. It's not quite got the body of a couple of the ones that I've had tonight. Certainly not got the body of that Port Charlotte. A wee bit drying towards the end and the finish. Caveat it also with suggesting this is a neck pour, first time, just fresh out the bottle. This is a good one, given the price. Now, I picked this up at Good Spirits Company. But if I check, just this window's open. I was looking at, yeah, sub £50. So £50 is retail. I think I paid 50, 51, 52 for it, something like that. Peat and sherry. Non-age statement. We don't know what the makeup of the cask is. The vatting in terms of age. Wow, I've torn through that. That's been quite, I keep going back. It's got a dry finish, really quite dry on the finish, dried fruit. Very sherry cask in style. It leaves your palate dry. I think that's the reason that you're going back for a sip and a sip and a sip again. Quite a Moorish thing. Quite a thing. Bunnahabhain, for their 18-year-old, £125 to £140 retail. Wee bit pricey, fair enough. The 25-year-old, forget about it, all of that stuff. That is gone. It's an occasional treat product for us, the 18-year-old. We'll look for it on sale or pick it up as a treat. But the rest of their range, the cask strength, the 12-year-old, Sturacher, Tochik, they're doing okay. Do we want the age statement? We've got the 12-year-old. Do we want sherry? We've got the Tochik or the Sturacher. This is a tidy, fair lineup, which is a theme across the majority of this company's producers. Think of Deanston, think of Tobermory and Lechick. Some distilleries are not abandoning the drinker for the luxury goods aisle, right? Why can't I say abandoning? I had a backup here if I needed to put a Bunnahabhain over there. But I think that's a good pick. That's a good, solid, peaty representation of Bunnahabhain. That's quite a nice wee surprise. I'm glad to have that wee bottle. And it's one of these kind of low anxiety ones that you could just put out on a table if you know that somebody likes the peat and sherry mix and they're just going to drink and you're just going to encourage them to help themselves and have as much as they like. And it's kind of It's easily replaceable and widely available everywhere. Not bad. Not bad. What say you? If I wind back up a wee bit, okay, that's maybe a wee bit too far. Darth Kermit is saying that he had that, and he said that he enjoyed it. It was a very good bottle, fantastic. Good to see you, and Robin. I hope you're keeping well. Jimmy Legg is saying, Wook will never speak to you, Aquavita. He's frosty. Cool. It might be the case. Mikey Hay is insane. Evening, Aquavita. Evening, all. We need to try and untie or unpack the mystery that is Wook. Mikey Hay, what do you say? James Hope is in. Good to see you. Saying hello to me, James. I think maybe I'll be seeing you in Limburg this year. I hope so, buddy. How does the Buna compare to the Oogie? Aye, Chris. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's going to be a wee 3-dram face-off a wee bit later in the evening. With that, let's move on. So I apologise to everyone. I knew that this was going to be the case. I like the vPub to be a positive thing. I like to talk about positive stuff, and I like to find things that are positive to share with you in the community. But of course, I say it elsewhere, and I'll say it here as well. Sometimes to critique something or to be negative about something is okay, especially if you're trying to be honest and constructive and you're not just doing it out of fuss or petulance. Maybe you're trying to arrive at a positive outcome from that negative feedback, and that's what I try and do here. I'm trying to be honest. I'm trying to represent your feelings and opinions too. And as I move on to this distillery, it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. I'm going to come down from the northeast. We're going to, in the Islay capital, Bamore. They've got a distillery right in the heart of the town, and it's an absolute legend. It's an 18th century distillery. It's one of the oldest, and in fact, they say that they've got the oldest warehouse in Scotch whisky. And it's just a magical spot, and they make magical liquid there. The problem is the liquid that they put out there, and certainly the stuff that we can buy, does not represent what they make there, in my experience. 12-year-old a few years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. The 12-year-old today is just, what is this? Worse than that, there are cheaper things coming in under the 12-year-old non-age statement releases that for us, when we visited Islay in 2022, there were 10 of us. It was undrinkable. It was just... However, Bamore make a fantastic product. If I was to put an official bottling over there, it would have to be something that, while still occasionally available, is long discontinued. This 51.5% ABV Vault Edition, first release, the Atlantic Sea Salt, was an absolute cracking example of Bamore, in my opinion. And this came out at about £50, £60, £70 maximum, that kind of price point. If you can find it at that price point, it's really, really worth your time. It's not only one of my favourite Bamores, but it's one of my favourite peaty whiskies anywhere in this room. One of my German friends that are in tonight, Doc McAllen Fine and Rare, and the amount of bottles that he's been able to pick up for me. Roy, do you want another one of the Atlantic Sea Salt? I picked one up at €60. Something else. Yes, Doc, absolutely, I want it. Thank you so much. Let's hide Bunahaven. Did I spell Bunahaven right? Yeah, I did. Let's get Bamore up. Sorry, I'm not keeping up. It's fantastic whiskey. But this is rare. It's rare to have something that's affordable and delicious and representative from Bamore. And it's super unfortunate. Here's something else that's rare. Here is an indie, an independent Bamore. This is a Dougie Lang Provenance, an Islay 8-year-old Bamore. Now, being Provenance, it's at 46% ABV. It's kind of one of the more accessible ranges. But it's not very often we see a Bamore from an independent bottler. So this is getting uncorked tonight. I have tried this before. Andy Pears brought this along to the Glasgow event in November last year, and he left it for everyone to enjoy. And there were some heels left in it that made it home with me. I took care of the heels, Andy. But I was mindful to say, oh, if that ever pops up again, I'll grab it. It's nice to have an indie Bamore. It's still available today. I think I paid £67 for this. So it's not cheap. This is an 8-year-old whiskey at 46%. It is not, by any metric, cheap. We don't want cheap whiskey. We want good whiskey. We want fairly priced whiskey. So let's have a nose of this. So Bowmore has this lovely fruit. You're always looking for the tropical kind of thing in Bowmore. At 8 years old, it tends to come across, for me, a wee bit more like maybe unripe melon and star fruit, that kind of, that is fruit, but it's not kind of gone to that heady, aromatic, overripe tropical style. Some green apple skin in here too. It's certainly fruity. But there's that lovely kind of herbal melon skin, love hearts, frutella, that kind of thing too. This is all just neck pour. Trying not to go on memory. The bottle that was finished off only had this much left in the bottom. Oh my goodness. The tropical note is there. It's a wee bit like a sweet grape. What is that? Sweet apple. Not a lot of citrus. The fruits are all kind of, they're at a different end of the fruit aisle, right? It's just Bowmore. Honey. Light honey. Honeycomb. I'd love to put an official release over here. I'd love to put more independent releases over here. But right now, the way that Bowmore is being handled, the hands that it's in, there's that note on the finish. It goes herbal. It goes almost like a little bit like basil. Bowmore has got such a distinctive profile. I think that it's difficult to fool anyone that you can pick up a glass of Scotch whisky and tell anybody what distillery it's from. Whisky just doesn't want to play that game, but certain styles of whisky, certain distilleries do play that game. A classic, typical example of Bowmore, I think everyone has a chance of picking it out blind, I really do. It is so unique, so distinctive. To fully shine, I think this needs a bit more age. Into the teenage years, I think this would get much more tropical. I think the fruit would round out, some of the sharper edges would come off. But we're not talking lemon zest and things here. We're talking just like, as I say, more kind of a tart, green apple skin, that kind of thing. Maybe some unripe white fruits. And dry and saline, a wee bit salty too. Unique spirit, absolutely unique. Anyway, my pick is that. It's still available now. I think it's a wee bit pricey, so if you're thinking about going out and treating yourself to an independent Bowmore, there aren't a lot to choose from, unfortunately, and that's why it's so pricey. I would say if I was to score this on a dram face score based on my memory of the heels of the last bottle and this neck pour, I think it would be hitting about a 6 out of 10 on dram face. In a recycled review, I think I'd be happy to offer up an 8 out of 10 based on the history of scores I've given out there. But crucially, a clean pair of heels to anything that's affordable, in my experience, from the official releases from Bowmore. What say you about Bowmore? Julian Rickman is saying sometimes the odd Bowmore SMWS distillery number 3 bottlings are quite something. Such a shame with the 12-year-old. The distillery history deserves so much more. So it's interesting that you agree with me there, Julian. So you're a fan of Bowmore, but disappointed by the 12. Sad when I finished my Atlantic sea salt. So glad that you enjoyed it. Ben, I think if you're ever here, there's a dram for you, buddy. If I could buy a distillery and remake it for the better, it would be Bowmore, Rob. That's exactly what I said in a very recent podcast. I'm not sure it's out there yet. It might be podcast 26 from Dramface, but I said something very similar. Or was it? Actually, no. I think it was on we were Dramface and we were on the Inverurie Whiskey Shop podcast. I think that's what we did. Jimmy Legacy, fairly priced. Why haven't we all been hired as consultants at distilleries? We would be brilliant as we'd be fairly priced. Yeah. And we'd be laughed out the door, right, for our naivety, for leaving money on the table and all of those awful business decisions that people tend to make. Ian Bruce is saying, Bowmore always makes me think of Vimto or Ribena juice. I get it, especially. Oh yeah, absolutely. Blackcurrant, my goodness. Ian, you're in the UK, aren't you? Americans tend not to use blackcurrant or Ribena or blackcurrant things as a tasting note. Blackcurrant berries. I'm right there with you. Graham Stevens, that looks like a new name. I've been considering picking up the Atlantic sea salt to try on holiday with the neighbours based on your recommendation, Aquaviti. But it's $200 in Australia, but everything is pricey here. Okay, in the context of Australia, if everything is pricey, and I think it's 2 to 1, it's £100. I have to say, if I was keen to seek, it's too much to pay. It is too much to pay for it, Graham. But if I was keen to seek a decent example, an expression of Bowmore, and specifically a Bowmore that brings that character that I've been talking about, that uniqueness, the Atlantic sea salt does it. And it's nice that Whiskey with Molly Ben is in backing up my recommendation too. Graham Fraser saying, I've often heard it said that Core-Range Bowmore suffers from working the stills too hard. But isn't it always the case that the stuff that ends up on, it's not like the stuff that ends up on Independence has gone from when they didn't work the stills too hard. I think that maybe you could argue that the Bowmore, they do work the stills too hard and it needs more years to fix that. It needs patience, it needs time, it needs a good age or whatever. It is what it is. However Bowmore is being run today, and however it was run back in the day when they made the whiskey, it is what it is. But I suggest that the way it's being bottled today, the way it's being presented to market, is nonsense. Fab tour at Bowmore, the standard drams were poor, but the Fashil dram was fab. Isn't it always the way, Helen? I went to Islay and I said, I'm not going to buy anything on Islay. I'm not going to buy any bottles, nothing. I'm just going to enjoy the island. I'm going to leave my money on the island and I'll do some tours. That's how I was going to spend my money. And I came back with a Fashil bottling of Bowmore because it blew me away. 15-year-old, bourbon cask, gorgeous stuff. Sid Martin never had a good Bowmore. Sid, and it might just be that it's something that's not going to land with you. If you're ever at one of these festivals, Limburg's a great example, take €20 out your pocket, €30, just go for it, and buy yourself a really good old Bowmore. And I think, know that it might be something that you enjoy so much, but it's heartbreaking because it's not easy to pick it up again. It's not easy to pick it up. Just opened up Portiskeag 12. Oh wow, Danny, you've done it tonight. It's almost clear, but tastes lovely. It's like Glencadam 10, but with peat. But the peat is light, though. I suggest that maybe there's a good chance that'll be Kalila in that one. But do some digging on the web, Danny. You should be able to find out what it is. Marcel, King's Ramsey saying I have a bottle of the 10-year-old Tempest, batch 4, and it's absolutely lovely. It's a shame they do not release anything like that anymore. Half a bottle of the Tempest over there, Marcel. Enjoying it too. I have to say, and I've tried them side by side, I think despite the higher ABV on the Tempest and the age statement on it, I somehow am drawn to the Atlantic sea salt. It's interesting. Top Shelf, the Dustin is saying, what's the fair price in 2024 for a bottle? Is there a price per year that we expect nowadays? How does cask strength impact it? First fill versus refill? Well, let's go with a 10-year-old. I'm reluctant to spend over £50 for a 10-year-old. 12-year-old, some of them, let's consider Springbank's 10, the Caledonia from Edredauer, that kind of thing, it's closer to £60 and things. But if the quality is there, if it's really, really punching, then we don't mind paying a wee bit more. But standard 10 and 12-year-old malt whiskies, £40 to £45, come on. Cask strength, £60, £65. Maybe push it to 70, and if it's really, really fantastic stuff, if it's really good stuff, a bit more. If it's got a real good age on it, a bit more again. It's just about being fair. It's about being fair. Now, I recently moved to Western Australia, says Ian Bruce. Ah, okay, Ian, yeah. So you're, as was already mentioned, it's going to be a completely different selection at a completely different price. Had a 25-year-old Bamore at the distillery, says Rick Johnson, last year, and it was fantastic. Not so much the price though. But again, you get the ability to do it there. And Sachin is here. Sachin Kent is saying recently bought a Bamore 18, Aston Martin edition, number 9, more money than sense. Depends. You have to sip that, you have to drink that now, you have to enjoy it, and you have to look at it. The whiskey's going to have to work harder to justify its price. I've got some pals in Canada, Rob over at Whiskey in the Six, that was blown away by one or two of the Aston Martin editions. I have not gone there at all. I don't want to encourage it. Just getting stubborn in my old age. Anyway, let's move now to the Kildalton coast. Let's start to wind things up a wee bit, but let's not lose the excitement here, because we're going to play a wee game. Down in the Kildalton coast, well, until Port Ellen opens up again, until Port Entruan from Elixir finds its stride and gets built and starts to come on stream. We've got the 3 legends from Kildalton coast. We've got Ardbeg, we've got Laphroaig, and we've got Lagavulin. 3 of them just absolute legends. But I'm going to do something interesting tonight. Now that we've finished chatting about Bamore, I'm going to do a wee head-to-head. We need to speed things up a wee bit, but I had this idea in my head when we were doing this. I've talked at length about Ardbeg, and I've talked at length about Ardbeg 10. So if we're going to pick an Ardbeg to put out there and represent that South Islay distillery, let's just put it out there. It is, of course, the Ardbeg 10. It's one of the Guardians of Islay. I keep talking about it. I talk about it at length. And every time I take a sip from, this is my 3rd bottle of Ardbeg 10, probably in the last 2 to 2.5 years, which might not seem a lot for a lot of you guys, but when you consider just the amount of whiskey that I fail to get through, that's an exceptional rate to get through. But some people will come over, or I'll need the smoky dram, I'll need it, and it's the Ardbeg 10 that I'm reaching for. And I think that the last 3 bottles I've had are exemplary. Fantastic quality malt whiskies. And at £50, you just can't have any argument for an all-natural 10-year-old. It's perfect. When we try to give an example of a fair product, Ardbeg 10 bizarrely maintains that position. Thank you. The special editions from Ardbeg, all of the kind of annual releases, official releases, I just, nope, not interested. Not playing the games, not paying the money. Disappointment, disappointment, disappointment. You've taught me to stay away. Your core range, though, is still interesting. I was torn between the Corryvreckan and the Uigeadail for this. But I decided to go out and pick up a fresh bottle of Uigeadail because it's been a long time. Uigeadail is a good ABV, 54.2% ABV. Tends to have, or it used to have in the past, a nice sherry side to it. Not necessarily first fill, refill sherry, that kind of thing. When the first original Uigeadails came out, they were very, very bold. They were very, very good, very rich. And we noticed that there was quite a significant step change batch by batch. Everybody talked about it back in the day, and it is what it is. It's still out there at reasonable prices. I think I paid 50-something pounds for this. I'm going to uncork it now because it's been a long time since it's been on the shelf. But what I'm going to do for this wee Uigeadail, non-age statement, natural whiskey, good ABV on it, decent price, fairly priced, let's be honest. I'm going to put it up against some of its competition. Let's go. Just a tablespoon of it. Ardbeg, you're funny. I always get this really cold outdoor, cold smoke, ashen. Peat is an addictive thing. It's an addictive thing in whiskey. It really is. And I'm going to put it up against an oddball that's not from the Kildalton coast, but just as a kind of control. I'm going to bring back the Kilchoman Sanic that we talked about earlier. I'm going to put a wee tablespoon of that in the glass too. A wee bit more expensive, the Sanic, but only a couple of pounds. Within the same kind of affordability. Quite a wee bit darker, the Sanic, we would say. This is the Ardbeg Ugadal. This is the Sanic. We're also going to put it up against its neighbour. Now, what would you pick from Lefroy to put Ugadal up against? Well, the ABV is a wee bit lighter on this one. This is 48% ABV, but it's got an age statement on it. This is 10 years old, and this is Lefroy's Sherry Oak Finish. I've had mixed experiences with this one. Thought it was okay. My chair is very creaky tonight. I hope that no one is hearing it. Look at the colour of this. So where's that Sanic? That was much darker than the Ardbeg. Look at the colour of the Lefroy. Now, we would love to get excited about that and go, ooh, that's an interesting colour. Let's see if we can analyse and appreciate our whiskey and from a colours perspective. But of course, it's Lefroy. We can't. So we know it's going to be likely dosed with colour. So let's just forget about colour. Let's go on nothing but flavour and go a wee head-to-head between these three whiskies, specifically looking at Ardbeg, Lefroy, and a wee control from Kilchoman. This is hard. I'm going to be suffering from peat blight by the end of tonight, right? And yet, Sanic has been open. The Lefroy Sherry Oak has been open since at least maybe a year. The Ardbeg Ugadal has only just been cracked tonight. Let's leave them to breathe a wee bit. See what you are saying. I really struggle with Ardbeg 10-year-old, says Greg in Paris. Again, I'm probably the only one, probably because I hate this dry and bitter grapefruit ashy note. That's actually, I think, what I like, Greg. Port Charlotte 10 over it any day for me. Super interesting and good to have that feedback and that perspective because it's real. There is a dryness, there is an ashen note, there is certainly a bit of grapefruit. I would agree with you completely. Jean Kelly is saying, now you're talking, go with you. Go with Oogie, Jean is saying. Great stuff. Fernando is saying, peat is a one-way journey. Once you start, you never look back. Well, that's true. And I remember being stuck, peaty whiskies, Islay. I was stuck there for a long time and I just loved it. But then I worked out that I was enjoying peat more when I was enjoying and experiencing other things. I liked that contrast of going back into the peaty style again. But I get you completely, Fernando. It can be a bit of a cul-de-sac. Seaweed World, fantastic Monday the 18th, starting another revolution around the world. Cheers to you all. And Monday's the 18th, is it? So 15th, yeah, it is. For Sherry Canary out in Canada, for Seaweed World, can we all raise a wee glass of whatever's in your glass and light the chat up with wee happy birthday Glencairns, hearts, or whatever you have at hand. Many happy returns, Sherry. Wish you all the very, very best when it comes round. Happy birthday. The flavours on that Lefroy are good. Very surprised by that mouthfeel. It's quite thin. And that's something I seem to recall that's happened with me in the past with it. Where to go now? Let's go for the Kilchoman. Sanic has got so good. Non-age statement Kilchoman up against this 10-year-old Laphroaig. I think the Kilchoman, despite the 2% ABV lower, I am not kidding. The mouthfeel is malt whiskey mouthfeel on the Sanic. Laphroaig, something strange. Flatter, thinner. The flavour's there, the richness is there, nice spice, good peat, good Laphroaig, iodine. Now, we're asking quite a lot of this Ugadal. Let's see how we got on. It's quite quiet. I feel bad because it's a neck pour, right? Salt, citrus, lemon rind. Somebody said grapefruit. Fantastic. Ash, definitely ash. Heat, higher ABV, making itself known here. Chili heat, spice, vibrance. Thin. Laphroaig's thin. This is thin. It's not thin in terms of weight and things. It's thin on the palate. It's a neck pour. Let's go back to the Sanic. My room is going to smell fantastic tonight. The sherry on Sanic is sweeter. Everything about that malt, that Sanic, is a sweeter, rounder, more kind of voluptuous, viscous experience. And it's the lowest ABV here. The Ardbeg is 54.2, 48% for the Laphroaig. How can that Kilchoman feel? How can it have so much more body at a lower ABV? But it's in these glasses tonight, it's clear. Laphroaig, richness, very typical Laphroaig. Feel a wee bit let down by the mouthfeel, by the interaction. I wonder if this is chill filtered. It's very likely to be chill filtered. Maybe that's part of it. It's very likely to be coloured, maybe heavily coloured. So there's maybe an emulsification thing happening there. The Ardbeg is a wee bit up against these two, wee bit insipid. I'll bear my time. I'll wait. A lot of refill casts in here, I would imagine. Whereas the other two's probably playing with a bit more, certainly the Sanic, I would imagine, has got a lot more first fill. It's nice to have the Ugadal back on the shelf, let's say. It's nice that they've not gone nuts with the pricing. I think it needs a wee bit of time to move up. I've picked the right whiskey to represent Ardbeg. I am not going to put the Sherry Oak Laphroaig forward to represent Laphroaig. You know what I'm going to put forward. It's going to be their cask strength. In the UK, it's available all the time now. It used to be a distillery only, but export-wise, it was always available. We're up to batch, I don't think 16's out yet. I think the latest batch is this one, 15. Fantastic whiskey, fantastic Laphroaig. If you want a Laphroaig experience, that's the one to go out and try. But, and I say this, it's a huge but. If you can find good value Laphroaig a bit cheaper from an indie, go forth and explore. However, in my experience, with very little exception, almost every single independent Laphroaig is much more expensive than the official releases. All that we need from Laphroaig's official releases is for them to be good. I think that 10-year-old Sherry Oak is not quite there. However, I have something else for you to consider. I'm on my second bottle of this now. Let me show you how much left in the other one. Let me grab it. Let's try to do a thumbs up. That wasn't working there. This is Laphroaig's 16-year-old. There's only a wee drop left. And I decided I would go out and replace it. Why? Because if I want a Lefroy on the shelf with a 16-year-old age statement on it from anywhere else, I'm 140, 150, 170 pounds. Their official 48% ABV expression, a wee bit lower. The other ones I mentioned there are cast strength. This official one is £88. In fact, some places online will have it even cheaper than that. But let's not consider just Lefroy. Islay Single Malt Whisky. I'm going to open this one because that one, that 16-year-old, is from a few years ago. I've dirtied all my glasses. Let's rinse out our Colholman Machier Bay. I could get a clean one, but it's good to take on a wee bit of water. How much would you pay for 16-year-old Islay malt? There are very few bargains left from official producers. All we need from Lefroy is for this wee 16-year-old at 48% ABV to be good. I quite enjoyed my time with that last one. This is a completely different animal. Much quieter, softer. Despite the 48% ABV, going to need to give this time. It's in a watery glass too. I'm going to put this off to the side. That is much better than I expected. But before I go raving about it, I'm going to compare it to something else. I'm going to need to get one or two clean glasses. I need to finish here on a high note. I need to finish on a flourish. And I think there's a good way to do it now that I've opened that one. Are you still with me? Are you still hanging in here? What did you pay for that 16-year-old? I bought it at Good Spirits Company, so I paid 88, I think. If you were to go online, I can check just now. I know, Jimmy, you're in Nova Scotia, but Lefroy 16-year-old, yeah, 80 is a similar price. So Good Spirits Company is a bit the right price. 87, thereabout. That's 88, 87 pounds. I think for a 16-year-old whiskey, that's kind of what we're seeing today. But I'm surprised that we can get a 16-year-old Islay Single Malt at decent ABV, 48% ABV, no mention of chill filtration, no mention of colour in this one, which is just such a heartbreaking shame. It should be natural. But what we've got here is a really soft, where the peat smoke is just quiet. It's just a much more ethereal, softer, more welcoming, comforting dram. Quite incredible. But I'm gonna hold it and I'm gonna compare it to something else in a little bit. Why do I want to go out on a flourish here? Why do I want to? When I was comparing those two, because there was one distillery left that I am more emotionally connected to than any other Islay distillery, and it's heartbreaking that I'm struggling to connect with it these days. Cal Taylor is saying, how much salt brine in that Lefroy 16? Salt and brine? Okay. It is, I think, objectively salty and briny. I think salt and brine, a wee bit like peat smoke, a wee bit like smoke and fennels and things, can diminish. But no, I would suggest this is absolutely salty and briny. a wee bit of even tinned sardines just because I'm looking for it, Kyle. Brian Stormont is saying, I have an incredible Lefroy Octave from Duncan Taylor. Wasn't cheap, but it's a beautiful experience. Well handled, well presented, probably a good age on it. Coming from an Octave cask as well. Glad you're enjoying it, Brian. Jimmy Legg is saying I can get a Lefroy 28 for $1,750. Bargain, of course. It's not for us, is it, Jimmy? Whiskey with Molly Benny saying, I know you're on Islay, but shout out to Loch Lomond single grade peated at £30 and Arna cast strength at 65. I'm going to finish on a wee flurry. Like I keep threatening Ben to talk about exactly that. Julian Rickman is saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Lager 16. Thank you for the segue, Julian. Lagavulin. I was already a lover of malt whiskey before I got into Lagavulin. But it was in 2009, from 4 years into my whiskey exploration journey, and I had a bottle of Lagavulin 16, and it completely flipped my world. Changed my life, arguably. I mean, I'm sitting here in front of you now. This is my career. This is my job now. Thank you. It's amazing. But thank you also to Lagavulin 16. But Lagavulin 16 in 2024, as I sit in front of you, is the whiskey that is permanently on sale. They never did anything to improve the output, to make it a more robust, more quality, more integrity-forward product. They kept it the same and just pushed the price up. Arbitrarily pushed the price up, like Diageo have been doing on Oban, on Kalila, and on Talisker, famously Talisker 18. We've talked about Diageo. It's heartbreaking for me. I love that distillery. I love visiting. I love touring. I love the location. I love the history. I love the design of the bottle, the aesthetics. I love the wee poem, The Dark Horse of Loch Sunaval on the front of the bottle. If anybody wants to send me a direct message to know a wee bit more what that is actually about, I'll send you the William Black thing. It's just, everything about Lagavulin for me is magical. It's just a magical distillery that I'm not buying anymore. I'm just not buying it. It would be very obvious for me to grab that wee Lagavulin 16 that changed my life and put it over here as a representation of Lagavulin to recommend to you. It would be also easy for me to put over the Lagavulin 8-year-old, which I think still represents good value today. It's often on offer, it's often discounted, often crazily in the UK through supermarkets. I haven't bought it. I haven't bought it in a long time. The last Lagavulin 8 is long been rinsed here. This is a wee special bottle I'm keeping. This is an anniversary bottling. This is the 2016 200th anniversary when they relaunched the 8-year-old. And this was gorgeous. I remember how much I loved this when it came out. So this is one of these bottles that I'll keep for a special moment. It cannot represent Lagavulin. So what am I going to go over there to complete our tour around Islay tonight? What am I going to put here? Heartbreakingly, and it's not because of the distillery, it's not because of the history, it's not because of the island, it's not because of the people that work there, nothing. It's to do with the product that's offered for sale. It's either not representative, below par, watered down, but by far more than anything, it's just so overpriced. So overpriced. It's been taken away from us. You know I'm speaking about the Lagavulin 12-year-old, don't you? I'm going to grab a clean glass or two. And while I'm there, I'll grab my Lagavulin 12. Too much whiskey out in front of me now, but a teaspoon of Lager 12. Another argument, I should put it over here. And something else that I'm going to suggest that you spend your money on rather than any of those things. I'm going to put it up against that Lefroy as well. Lagavulin 12, okay, it's cast strength, I'll give it that. It's a gorgeous whiskey, but I think the last time this was released, they were asking us £155 for it now. No. This is another Port Askig. This is their 17-year-old. This is also cask strength. Now, I am not offering this up to you at 50.5% ABV and suggesting to you that this is Lagavulin. No, that is not the case. We don't know what this is. We suspect it's Caol Ila. Caol Ila is, we have to always remember, Caol Ila is there to make Lagavulin. That's what Caol Ila is there for. Of course, it ended up making Caol Ila. But that was the purpose of Caol Ila, for the blends, to make that style of whiskey for blends and to make a lot of it. I once heard it said from Arthur Motley about 8 years ago, thank God for Caol Ila, and he's absolutely right. It does so much heavy lifting for Islay single malt whiskey production. I think this is Caol Ila. This Port Askig 17-year-old is £122 I paid for it. 17-year-old. Suddenly makes that Laphroaig 16-year-old look cheap at 88, doesn't it? But this is higher ABV, 50.5% ABV, and one of the best malt whiskies I've purchased personally in the last year. Cheers. There's why. So that lovely kind of integrated everything together in the Laphroaig 16 I got. I'm getting it now, but it's much more balanced. So even a wee bit of fizz, it's bone dry at the end. It goes dry very quickly. You have to, there's a caveat with this one. It does dry quickly. It goes dry. But when it arrives, that kind of balance between, yes, this is peaty smoky whiskey, but it's got this kind of elegance, salinity, good finish, strong finish. Juicy fruit gum. Lemons, sugared lemons. Soft fruit. Salty. Soft, ridiculously soft for 50% ABV whiskey. Let's go into our Laphroaig now. Wee bit of kind of, wow, potpourri, soapy, fabric conditioner type sweetness to it. That sounds bad. I don't mean that as a negative, but it's really quite, my goodness, really amps up a kind of floral element in the Laphroaig that I wasn't getting at all. Back to the Port Askig. And now, our legendary Lagavulin. I have to be honest. I think, despite the fact that the Lagavulin is 5 years younger, I think there's a depth, and it's probably down to the cask selection and what they've put together there. There is something, especially on the finish, and it makes itself known on the finish more than anything else. The Lagavulin edges it. It's a little bit more ashen, a little bit more kind of brutal, especially on the arrival. It's a little sharper, a little zestier, but it's richer and it's more. Let's go back to our 17. But this brings something the Lagavulin can't, and it's that age, it's that sense of everything being a wee bit more integrated and together. Saltier, it's drier, certainly on a finish, a ridiculously dry finish. But honestly, if you're going to go out and spend a significant amount of money on a peaty Islay whiskey and thinking about that Lagavulin style, right now, I'm not putting a Lagavulin there. I'm just not doing it. I'm putting an independent there. And that 17-year-old, I'm very, very glad to have it. I think it's an excellent whiskey. £155 for what the Lagavulin is offering us. It's definitely a good whiskey. It is definitely a good whiskey. Definitely a good, dare I say, the epitome of an Islay malt whiskey. But at £155, I think they've lost us. I think they've lost us. There is one more whiskey I could try. And it's an interesting one. But it's late. And I've hit the 2-hour mark. If you want me to hold up this whiskey, if you want me to uncork this whiskey and try this whiskey and hold it up as an example of what I expect to be something that shows all the producers everywhere that there is danger over their shoulder, I don't know, raise your glasses in the chat. Just let me know. Yuri is in. Good to see you, Yuri. Saying Lagavulin 16, obviously a good one. But if we put it against the price, 20 years or other more aged one with a price range of around £200 at the distillery gives much more, but surely too expensive. We're all feeling it. We don't mind paying the price they're asking for. £80 for Lagavulin 16 is not expensive if it was £80 that's not chill filtered and coloured. And I think the community and peat drinkers have kind of fought back immediately to say that, to see that price and suddenly say, well, what can £80 get us from other places? And we work out quite quickly that things that are better than Lagavulin 16. Thank you, Lagavulin 16, for doing what you did, for occupying that space. There were retailers out there that argued that you were too cheap for a long time. I understand. But you overreacted. £80, £85. I've seen Lagavulin 16 priced at £100 on a retail shelf. Most of the time, we see it today in the 70s. Even it drops into the 60s at times. And it's become the whiskey that's permanently on sale. Oh, you have to do one or the other. You have to make a good mass market whiskey that you're watering down and you're chill filtering and you're making the most of out of it that you can, because you know the margins are going to be thin, or you make something that's the best it can possibly be. Don't make one and say it's the other, and don't make the other and sell it too cheap. We don't want either of these scenarios. We just want fair in the middle. Alistair Gray is saying it's a bloody good whiskey. Alistair, do you have it? Have you tried it? Have you tried it? Okay, there's hundreds of glasses coming in. People are wanting me to go and get another clean glass. Is this going to be a record? Started out with 8. I've added 2. I'm at 10, 3, 9. Yeah. Okay. We're not short of Glencairns around these parts. Here's why things have to be kept in check. Somebody mentioned tonight Ardnamurchan with their cast strength. Somebody's talked about the Glasgow peated already. Glasgow peated is, what, £60 for their cast strength, £65. If you go for their 46%, it's £49. And it's fantastic whiskey. The people are loving it. They're lapping it up. Ardnamurchan cask strength Ardnamurchan, their most heavily peated expression, is £65. And I think could go toe-to-toe with just about everything that we've shared tonight. I haven't tried what's in this box. Just across the water, on the Isle of Skye, we've got this. It just come out. Mixed reports on the Legacy, the inaugural that came out. Mixed reports on the second release that came out. I can't remember what it was called now. I will get to it. And then the most recent one, the third release, Altglen or Altglen. Mixed reports on that one too. For me, I loved them all. I loved them all. Spirit driven, ex-bourbon. So first fill bourbon, then first fill bourbon and refill. And the most recent one was very, very similar too. It's bourbon, bourbon, bourbon so far. Loved it. Pure Isle of Skye whiskey, much more heavily peated than Talisker. But what we've got on this new one, Knock Namoynia, I think in Gaelic it's Rock Namoynia, but I'm not a Gaelic speaker, so apologies. Knock Namoynia. We've got a little bit of sherry in the mix. Single digits, I believe, less than 10%. But I think what we can see here is a much darker colour than we've seen in the previous Torrevakes. £59. They're up there. Charging at the limit of what they can charge. If I'm going to criticise Bruichladdich for putting out a 10-year-old at £59, I have to criticise Torrevake for putting a non-age statement out there at £59. It's a new distillery, and if they give us integrity, if they give us fair whiskey, if they give us fair pricing, all the things I've been asking for tonight, if they step forward and do their very, very best, I have to step forward too. So I did. I stepped forward and I bought this one. You'd think I would be suffering from peat blight tonight, that I'm not getting the peat smoke anymore. This is a peaty whiskey, strongly peated. Suddenly I feel the need for a blind challenge. I feel the need to, I think that there are older whiskies I've sipped tonight, the 17, the 16, I hope, and the Lagavulin 12, I hope that they would step forward and they would betray their age in a blind tasting. There are some other whiskies in here. I think the sherry would expose some, the very spirit-forward aspect of others would expose those. But I think what we have here is shockingly, surprisingly, disarmingly good. Neck pour, it's not even had 2 or 3 minutes in the glass straight. Amazing. Let me share something else with you. This is not difficult. Is this difficult to do? Let me read this out to you. Heavily peated single malt whiskey made with concerto malted barley. Thank you. With an in-grain phenols content of 78.4% ppm, parts per million. Fermented with Pinnacle and Anchor yeast and aged in a mix of Americano Coloroso, Pedro Jimenez and ex-bourbon casks. Bottled at 46% with no chill filtration or colouring and a residual phenols level of 19.7 ppm. Look at how much space it took up for them to share all of that transparency, all of that information. Why is that important? Because we love this stuff and we taste this stuff and we need to feel what is it that's making us feel this thing. And when we look at a box that's blank or a box that's full of marketing flannel, it does nothing for us to answer these questions. But if we read something like that, we say, wow. So they started at 78 ppms and in the glass it's 19. That's amazing. That means that this Ardbeg I'm sipping is probably somewhere in the order of 16, 17 or 20 or whatever it may be. It's just, it opens up all of this kind of gorgeous light. What are these yeast varieties that they're sharing with us? They're telling us They're not telling us the percentage of the casks. Maybe it's not important. They're not telling us the age, but they're telling us a hell of a lot in the space of one paragraph, helping us to understand why the whisky is affecting us. It's not difficult. Is it difficult? Sorry, there's still almost 300 of you in tonight. Sorry, thank you for sitting through this entire soapbox monologue from me tonight, talking about Islay whiskies and just banging my gums and being probably more negative than I should be, but it's the frustration, and I sense that it's the frustration that comes from you guys as well. But the takeaway from all of tonight is that there are producers out there that are doing great things. There are producers out there that are doing great things and charging more than they should. There are producers out there doing terrible things. And there are producers out there that are just being fair. I hoped this Torrevieck was going to be good to finish the stream tonight, to finish the topic. I hoped that it would be something that I could hold up as a torch and say, warning, if you continue to price yourself out of the market, there are people that are just going to step in and take the audience away from you, and you will never get them back again, because what we're talking about is a lack of balance and a lack of fairness and a big dose of betrayal. It's happening right now in front of our eyes. Just because you can premiumize, just because people will step up and pay you that money, does not mean you should. There are independent players that will step in and take the space. All of the port askings I've shared with you tonight are absolute recommends. I didn't expect this Torrevieck to be an absolute recommend, but neck pour, first couple of sips, it is. I don't think a lot of people's going to be drinking this and saying sherry. Maybe contrasting it to the earlier Torreviecks, maybe. If you were put off by the spirity, forward nature of the early Torreviecks, this is different. Sweeter, softer, more in check, more in balance, super peaty. That 19 odd ppm measure, that just don't read anything into that other than that is what it is. This is what 19 parts per million phenols taste like, and it's very, very peaty and excellent for it. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, fantastic info they gave here, Roy. I agree with you, Greg. That's just one paragraph. It's fabulous. Is there sediment in the bottle? That would be a real Jimmy wants sediment. Listen, even when whiskey's go to a bottling plant, Jimmy, more often than not, even if they're not chill filtered, they still go through the same equipment. So the chances of any sediment getting through is next to impossible. And if there is sediment in the bottle, it's often something that happens post-bottling, which is more likely to be flock or some such thing. It's very rare to find a bottle with sediment in it. I know that a lot of you will talk about the raw cask blackadders and things, but that's added after bottling. Rick Johnson is saying, got to run now. A Glen Grant tasting tonight, but good luck to everyone in the quiz. Thanks for a real fun vPub, Roy. Rick, thank you very much. Come back and try the quiz a wee bit later. An interesting one tonight. Desi of Leland is in. Good to see you, Daisy. Hope you're keeping well, and I hope that I'm going to see you in Limburg this year. Thomas F is saying, if we're crossing the water to other distilleries, what about Jura? Okay, I'll get my coat. I read that originally pre-1960s, it was heavily peated, but some flavours are lost to time. There are recent Juras that are heavily peated. You can find them, Thomas. They do exist. And if you're looking at Jura, I think there's a lot of discussion that we can have tonight, that we have had tonight, that we can apply to Jura. Really fantastic Dramface article by Doogie Crystal on a Manthania cask Jura. I encourage you, Thomas, to give it a wee read. I think you might enjoy it. Ian Graham is saying, with Islay prices being so expensive, would you recommend something like an old Ballantrae 15 instead? I've got the old Ballantrae over there. I wanted to focus tonight, Ian. It's nice to welcome you in, buddy, on Islay whiskies. The old Ballantrae, it's been a wee while since I've tried it, but I think I used it on a cask strength vPub in the past. So I have had the 15-year-old old Ballantrae based on community recommendations. It doesn't really taste a lot like what we've had tonight. This is very, very Islay themed, which is what I suggest the Torrevik is. And from the first time I tried Torrevik, I felt it was very Islay in style. Graham Fraser saying, I'm pleased to see Torrevik are finally starting to bring new, slightly older releases, and some with sherry. Big step up, big change, big improvement here, Graham. Fantastic. Jimmy Leg is saying, this is why I watch, having drams with all these brilliant folk, and you is tremendous fun. Jimmy, that's amazing that it can be fun. I doubt myself all the time, but it's wonderful to have you here to tell me that it's okay. We need to vote with our wallet, says Hoyt. Hoyt, it's good to have you in, buddy, and it's absolutely true. We do. And I think that that's a bit of my Diageo thing right now. I love the Diageo distilleries. I love virtually all of them, and I often talk about how they have the crown jewels of Scotch malt distilleries and all of this stuff. But they're treating me in a way that's making it very clear that they don't want any part of this relationship anymore. So for me to chase that with money is folly. So I step away and I look left and I look right and I find stuff. We all find stuff. Willie Buchanan's in. Good to see you, Willie. Hi, Roy. Can you stay on your soapbox as long as you want? Thank you, Willie. I appreciate it, buddy. Even if you don't need to agree with me, and if you do have, you will inevitably have different opinions. That's what the comment section is for. I've been a bit delinquent in recent weeks. I need to catch up. I need to do a wee bit better. But the last couple of weeks have been intense. It's getting a bit better in the weeks ahead. So hopefully I can interact with you there. Graham Young is saying, sipping a Torrevik Altglean second release. That's right. Altglean had 2 releases. That's why I was forgetting it. And indeed, it is a wee bit young to me, but sublimely peated and to my liking. Perfect, Graham. I think you're going to love this latest one. And Eero M is saying, I would love to hear your thoughts about Benromac's contrast peat smoke and Benriach smoke season, peated 10 and 12. Summarise it by saying I liked the Benriach. I loved the Benromac, the peat smoke and the peat smoke sherry cask. But I also have to share that there was a Balvenie 17 week of peat that you wouldn't buy it for a peaty whiskey, but I really loved that bottle. I think it's been a long time since I found a Balvenie that I enjoyed, and I enjoyed that one. Black Fernie, the only bottle I ever had of Glenturret 12 had sediment in the bottom. Is it sediment? It's not going to be cask, wood? Is it's not going to be char or anything? It's going to be something that's happened post bottling, I would say. Jamie Legacy, I just want them to pick the big splinters out. You don't want to be hurt, right? Thomas F is saying thank you. I'll seek that article out. Thomas, I hope you enjoy it. Doogie Crystal's an absolute asset to Dramface. He's amazing. Greg's Whiskey is saying, I don't know how it tastes like now, Aquaviti, but I got a mid-2000s or so, but I have a Finlaggan cast strength. Okay, Finlaggan cast strength, again, is more likely to be Colila, I believe. I think all Finlaggans are probably Kalila. But I know that there's a lot of people that really enjoyed it. That I always say that I believe is Lagavulin. It's young and feisty, but amazing. There's a lot of I believe it to be Lagavulin, but it ends up being Kalila out there. My point is that sometimes Kalila can be very, very Lagavulin-esque. Very, very Lagavulin-esque. Okay, so there we have it. Just across the water, there is a distillery doing very, very Islay things on the west coast of Scotland. They just happen to be on Skye. Is it too early to say? No. This is the best Torrevik that's been released to date. Cask strength is good. I think this has got more dimension. So we had the original release, their inaugural release, We had the Islay first and second release, then the Cask Strength came out, and now we've got this. I think it's the best. I think it's the best one. Neck pour, 1 dram only. I always have to caveat that. That's what the vPub's about. It's about the spontaneous, kind of ad hoc, in the moment, uncork and try. And Ben, Whiskey with Molly, saying, had the Balvenie Wiki Peat 17 on the blind tasting consortium on Saturday. A great dram, and it scored highly. Fantastic. It's nice to hear some consensus out there. It's not just me that's enjoying it. Listen, all of the whiskies that I'll ever sip on the vPub, there is no reason for me to promote it. A Balvenie, a Torrevieja, a Laphroaig, a Lagavulin, or whatever it is. The only reason I want to promote it is for you guys to get a hold of it and say, aye, this is good. This is good value for money. This is fairly priced. This is good stuff. There is never an ulterior motive. Why? Because I am financed by you fully. I don't even take free whiskey. It's when I go and buy whiskey, I ask that I pay the full price. I don't ask for favours. I don't ask for discounts, nothing. Danny Heventon is saying, so Saturday, 51 years around the sun. Oh my goodness, Danny. And I feel like an infant in the whiskey scene, but what a journey so far. Cheers, Roy. Thursday nights are not only a blast, but an education. Danny Heventon, I need to hold a wee glass of whiskey high and wish you a very happy 51st birthday come Saturday, my friend. So what would that be? Today's 14th, the 16th. Many happy returns, Danny Heventon, my friend. I hope you have a good one. And how terrific is it that it's fallen on a Saturday for you as well? Happy birthday, Danny. Cheers. And thank you for the dram and the support too, Danny. Anyone else feel like feeling that like the SWA should be paying Aqua Vitae for his work? Well, the thing is that I want to promote Scotch whisky as a whole, and I want the net effect to what I do to be a positive contribution to Scotch whisky. Of course I do, but I don't want to do it for the sake of it. I want to do it for the reasons that I fell in love with the thing, because it's wonderful. And in order for somebody else that comes after me to say it's wonderful, that has to be preserved. And sometimes it needs a bit of negative critique, and not just from one voice, but from a community, in order to help that happen. Black Fennis saying, if we're doing birthday greetings, it's just turned midnight, so it's my birthday today. It's the birthday season. It is truly the birthday season. February and March for me is fraught. It's like a minefield of birthdays every other day. But Conrad, my friend, I'm going to raise another wee glass to you, buddy. You've been around here for a long time. One day we'll get to sit down and wax lyrical about whiskey, our pasts, our presents, and our future. And until then, I'll wish you a very, very happy birthday, since it's past midnight. Happy birthday, Conrad. Cheers. Amazing. And Jimmy's saying, Aqua Vitae, I agree with you every time you praise Kilkerran. So here we have it, my producer of 2024, and it's there because I love it, not just because I want to appease my pal Jimmy in Canada. Excellent. Let's get the quiz on the go. The last quiz, I think we found a balance. It felt like a vPub quiz again. We knew there was a good chance there was going to be 10 out of 10s. But we also knew that they were going to have to work hard for it, that it was going to be tricky, and it wasn't going to be a gimme. Ben, Whiskey with Molly, a couple of weeks before, said, I've scored 10 out of 10 tonight, Roy, but I feel like it's a hollow victory, and that was my fault, Ben. Buckle in tonight, my friend. You might get a well-deserved 10 out of 10. Remember, the quiz at the end is always meant to be good fun. You can follow the crowd. You can do what so many people do. Some of the questions are going to be about things that happened before your time in whiskey. What's going on here? Okay. It's asking me for permissions and things. That's not normal, but okay, we'll go with it. So, yeah, some of the questions are going to rely on facts and things that happened before your time in whiskey. So it's okay to lean on your peers in the chat. If you're watching this on the replay, if you can call up the live chat. If you go down to the comments before, if you're watching on mobile, swipe to the side. You're going to get the live chat comments, so you can do it in real time, and you can lean on the community a little bit, let's say, to crowdsource some of your answers. The real diehards do it just kind of cold, and they just go. They don't want to see the chat. They just want to play along. And when they get a 10 out of 10, I think that's when they really feel it. But the quiz is yours to do with what you like. You're only playing against yourself, and you only need to leave a score in the comments if you want to. I love it for everybody that stays till the end. There's often more than 200 of you, almost 250 of you in tonight, right at the end, after all of this that I've been through, and it's much appreciated. I wish you all the best of luck as we roll in to the quiz at the end. Always multiple choice. Question 1. Which of these Highland distilleries is commonly associated with a cat? Danny's birthday, Conrad's birthday, Rob with a new baby, so much to celebrate. Gav's Dram getting back to full health. Tremendous. I'm always playing against Andrew Butler. I lose every time, says Jimmy Legg. Is Andrew in tonight? Andrew's the guy to fight against. Which of these distillery is associated with a cat? A. Clynelish, B. Glenturret, or C. Royal Lochnagar? An easy one to start. James Caden is already celebrating 1 out of 1. Graham Young is saying turrets. Oh. And Duder Court is saying, oh, I actually know this one. Aris Mouse is in. Good to see you, Aris. Julian Rickman saying B, and Kyle Taylor saying A. Which one isn't, is saying Peathead. Oh, I like it, Frank. Sugar Kitty, good to see you in, Sugar Kitty. A cat, me. Aye, I was hoping, I can't believe it's the first time we've seen you, but I'm glad that you're in looking after us. As always, Sugar Kitty, along with Alistair Gray, Hillswood, Mike Molasses, and our other admins and moderators that keep things clean. Thank you so much. I can tell you, question 1, always meant to be a wee bit easy. You just had to dodge the C. Hopefully nobody suggested that Royal Lochnagar is associated with a cat. But of course, Clynelish is branded with a cat. And Glenturret, famously, Towser, the cat, the Guinness World Record holder mouser, supposedly. Question 2. Which two once upon a time Hiram Walker owned distilleries relied on neighbouring distillery workforces to keep their plant running in the late 20th century? Once upon a time, these distilleries would have been owned by Hiram Walker. That's a clue. They also relied on neighbouring distillery workforces to keep their plant running, and we're back in the 20th century. Am I talking about A, Glen Scotia and Glen Glassaw, B, Glen Scotia and Benriach, or C, Glen Scotia and Scapa? Once upon a time, Hiram Walker, they relied on their neighbours to keep the distillery running. Sugar Kitty saying, been here the whole time, just multitasking. 5 streams on at the moment. Sugar Kitty, you're killing it. My goodness. Is that neurodiversity you're employing there? Quite incredible. Thank you for being here and helping us out. So like I say, the people that are watching the replay, or even the people that are here live, if they're not sure about this one and they lean on the chat a wee bit, Rory Dolgetty's in. Where's Roy in Norway is in. Fantastic. Peter Lee is in. Mikey Hay again. Good to see you all. Fantastic. Finally done. Good to see you. Gav's Drams is still here at the end. Health must be coming back. You must be feeling the strength again, Gav. Everybody thinking it's C. Absolutely. Glen Scotia was kept going by the staff from Springbank, and Scapa was kept going by the staff at Highland Park back in the day. Question 3. Which distillery in Scotland still operates a Lomond still? Who still operates a Lomond still? A. Loch Lomond, B. Bruichladdich, C. Scapa. Ben Dramhunter is saying, why is Ugadal so good? Well, I've got an Ugadal in front of me tonight, Ben. I know bad. I'll say because it's single malt Scotch whisky and it's peated and it's from Islay and it's very good. Pedro is saying, I think A, B, and C. Ooh. Which distillery in Scotland still operates a Lomond still? A, Loch Lomond, B, Bruichladdich, or C, Scapa? Doother Court is saying, I'm guessing B because surely A would be too easy. Jimmy Legg is saying B, but doesn't Loch Lomond have all of the stills? Oh, well, you were there, buddy. Loch Lomond have Swan Neck stills, a column still, a copper column still specifically for malt, and also straight neck stills, but they do not have a Lomond still. Bruichladdich has a Lomond still, and Scapa has a Lomond still. The plates are not in there for the Scapa still anymore. It's kind of used more like a traditional pot still, but it is a Lomond still. Bruichladdich uses their Lomond still to make botanist gin. I just asked which distillery still operates a Lomond still. Bruichladdich and Scapa. Been kind to you, I hope, so far. Hopefully most of you are still holding on to your 3 out of 3 as we go into question 4. Which recent release has relied on some Islay influence for its flavour profile? A. Lochlea's Ploughing Edition. B. Glasgow's 1770 Manthania. Or C. Ardnamurchan's Cask Strength. Which recent release has relied on some Islay influence for its flavour profile? Lochlea's Ploughing Edition, Glasgow's 1770 Small Batch Manthania, or Ardnamurchan's 2023 Cask Strength? Pedro saying, oh man, 2 out of 3 for a 2 out of 3 correct. Oh, wow. Pedro slipped up already. What did I catch you out on? Corylus, is that a new name, Corylus? That Scapa Factoids has stuck with me since we toured back in 2017. Fantastic, Corylus. If that is the first time I've welcomed you in, it's nice to have you here. Snapper XV is here too. Fantastic. 2 out of 3, don't worry about it. Stay with it. Too Slow Rob, 2 out of 3 as well. Don't worry. Mr. Jura, 500, 3 out of 3. That looks definitely like a new name to me. And Lachlan McKenzie's here too. Marku Mackinnon as well. Great to see all the familiar names hanging out till the end to play the quiz. I can tell you that you're absolutely spot on. Vast majority of you kicked out the park. Lochlea's Ploughing Edition uses Lochleigh spirit matured in ex-Islay casks. Leaning a wee bit on the John Campbell connection, no doubt, but why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Question 5. Always the image, always the picture question. What I think is super interesting about this picture is that you see the stills exposed, so you see the actual size, scale, and shape of them. So often there's that kind of floor in, so that you're higher than the actual still itself, so you don't get to see everything that's below the heating, the steam coils or whatever it may be underneath. But I'm just going to ask you, where are we? A, we're on Islay. B, we're in the Lowlands. Or C, we're in Ireland. Can I just say at this point that this picture may not be taken recently? This could be an archive picture. It's one of my own pictures. So Graham Fraser's in tonight. He can play along fully. We're not using a Graham Fraser question tonight. It's one of mine. So it might be a couple of years old. Are we in Islay? Are we in the Lowlands? Or are we over on Ireland? Jimmy Legg, tricky, he's saying. And Danny Hebington is saying out, Jimmy Legg, absolutely. So a banana skin, not quite, Greg. I think it's fairly legitimate and straightforward. A, follow the crowd. Fernando, it's the right strategy. The crowd are going with Islay, and we are indeed looking at Port Ellen while it's in construction. This is Port Ellen Distillery. A lot's happened since then. This was in 2022. This picture has been taken, and of course, we imagine that by the end of this year, Port Ellen will be running at full tilt. Donner Pass Whiskey Tim on a 5 out of 5 at the halfway point, along with Hellswood, Jimmy Legg, Mikey Hay, Daniel Williams, Desi Leland, Molasses. Marku just is jumping. Where's Roy? Danny Hebington, Lachlan McKenzie, Gene Kelly. Simone from New Zealand, fantastic. So many of you doing really, really well. Let's keep rolling. Question 6. In the earlier days of Whiskey Tube, you might need to lean on some of the people that are a wee bit more long in the tooth in Whiskey Tube here. The Scotch Test Dummies channel encountered a bottling so profound, it became the bottle of wow. What was it? What was the bottle of wow? A, it was a Fischel bottling from Islay. B, it was a cask strength bourbon. C, it was a 25-year-old Speyside. Port Ellen opens on the 22nd of March, Graham. We're on the cusp, we're on the cusp. Jimmy Legacy just saw the credit, me. It was very, very subtle there, buddy. I wonder what they'll be charging for the tours. It'll be hilarious. No doubt, Helen. I hope that it's fair. Why can't it be fair? Oh, it'll be the new premium. Exclusive, exclusive, exclusive. Whiskey's not for you, or whiskey's no longer for you. It'll be that brigade, and it's just, I know it comes across as just sour grapes. It really does, but Donner Pass Whiskey is using an acronym there. Very good acronym. Pedro is admitting with the barfly's advice. Go with the flow, says Lachlan Mackenzie. I sampled this at their 5-year anniversary, says Hoyt. Absolutely. It is. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof was the bottle of wow. Fantastic times, fantastic fun. Scotch Taste Dummies, Scott and Bart, still going strong over there on YouTube. Great guys, great friends. Love it. Love it. Love what they've done for Whiskey Tube. You cannot overstate what those guys did in injecting fun into the scene, collaboration, reaching out, inspiring aquavitae. Question 7. Torrevieja has released their new Legacy Series release. Their, Croc Pneumonia or Knock Pneumonia. But what is their Legacy Series? What is the Legacy Series? What does it actually mean? The Legacy Series is an annual 46% ABV temporary core-release. B. They are chapters documenting their march towards a 10-year-old. Or C. They are occasional component-style releases showcasing work in progress through maturation and cask type. Now, it's important that you understand it's not my interpretation, it is literally what they are saying, what they are stating on their PR, on their news releases, on their social media, everything that you can touch about Torrevieja, this is what they state their Legacy Series is about. It's either their annual 46% ABV temporary core releases, it's B, the chapters, which document their march towards a 10-year-old, which is not far away when you think about it, because 2018, yeah, they're already 8 years old. Or is it occasional Glengyle, Kilkerran style component releases showcasing work in progress through maturation and cask type? And you guys have got it absolutely right again. Even Graham Fraser has wobbled a wee bit here by saying B, I think, but you're spot on. They are chapters documenting their self-declared march towards a 10-year-old. Well done. Well done. Finally, they're saying the dummies is where I found you, so forever grateful. Aye, I'm forever grateful to you, finally done, and I'm forever grateful to my pals Scott and Bart. Tremendous stuff. Question 8. Glenfiddich's release of Snow Phoenix was the result of a 2010 roof collapse after a snow blizzard. I don't know what other kind of blizzard we have, right enough. Sorry. What did the packaging depict? Did the packaging depict A, a snow phoenix, B, a blizzard, or C, a roof collapse? Glenfiddich's release of the Snow Phoenix was the result of a 2010 roof collapse after a blizzard. So it was the sheer weight of the snow on the roof of the warehouse collapsed. What we want to know is, what did the Snow Phoenix commemorative packaging end up depicting? A literal snow phoenix, a blizzard, or a roof collapse? Love a good sand blizzard, says. Aye, not bad, James. I'll give you that one, James Cadden. Catching me. Whiskey with Molly, I had a bottle. Ben, I did not have a bottle, but I got to taste, I think it was at Limburg actually. Certain it was at Limburg. I took a glass of Snow Blizzard, and it was one of the cleanest, purest, most delicious Glenfiddichs I've ever had. Super soft and creamy and weighty, and I don't know how much it was to do with the Snow Blizzard or the fact they just decided to put something out there that was relatively unfettered. I don't remember how much it was. It's been a long time. 2010 release, right? But there is a snow phoenix in the pick, says Kyle Taylor. So it's kind of sea, but there is snow. So all three, question mark? Well, not all snow constitutes a blizzard, right, Kyle? But absolutely, a roof collapse and a snow phoenix were both pictured on the packaging. Am I being kind to you? Hold on. Here's the packaging. You can see on the left, you can see this picture of the collapsed roof, and it kind of, you can see this hole in the roof that kind of looks a wee bit like a bird. So on the right hand side, you can see the phoenix. Where they've done it, it's quite clever. It's just kind of very opportunistic marketing, but it's cool. Where they've just taken that original image and fettered it a little bit to make a phoenix, to dramatize the kind of the light and the roof collapse and stuff. The only thing that's not there is clearly a blizzard. So who is still on full marks? A lot of you, my goodness. It's going to be 10 out of 10s tonight, but the last two questions will be tough. Question 9. What can be said of Lindores Abbey distillery owners, Drew and Helen Mackenzie, long before their distillery was ever realised? What can we say of the owners? In their garden, they found A, a whisky writer, B, an ancient still and worm, C, a herd of drunken cattle. Before Drew and Helen Mackenzie realised their distillery, before they founded Lindores Abbey Distillery, what might they have found in their garden? A, a whisky writer, B, an ancient still and worm, or C, a herd of drunken cattle? Whiskey with Molly Ben is saying he loves Lindores. Yeah, I heard they were popular up at the Fife Festival recently as well. They deserve it. They held a session at the Glasgow Whisky Club with Murray. It was great fun. Ben is saying easy. Whoever wrote this question resembles a herd of drunken cattle. If you know, you know, Jimmy. C, but by cattle, you just meant some havering lasses. No. This will be difficult before we've even hit the asset. I can tell you that before Drew and Helen Mackenzie founded Lindores, it's in Helen's dad's house, her house. Once upon a time, the famous whiskey writer Michael Jackson knocked on their door to ask if he could wander round their garden and take pictures of the original Lindores Abbey. The famous quote from Friar John Core of 1494, if he could have 8 balls of malt for which to make aquavitae. That's the spot, apparently, where it happened. That is it's not the seed of whiskey making in Scotland, but it's the first recorded record of whiskey or distillation in Scotland, 1494. Lindores Abbey. Michael Jackson was the man. They didn't know who he was, but he put a passage in the book about it. And then he sent them a book afterwards, and he wrote inside, told them what page to turn to, and it was written up in there. And he called Lindores Abbey a pilgrimage for all whiskey lovers. Tough one, tough one, tough one. We're ready to roll into the asshat. How are we doing on the scores after 9? Oh my goodness, suddenly it's become a lot thinner. Lots of 8s out of 9s from Jimmy Legg, Daniel Williams. Hey, Daniel, good to see you still here. Black Fen, Ben Dramhunter, Donner Pass Whiskey, Kyle Taylor, Chris Pollack. Lots of 8s. Donald Rance, good to see you, Donald. Simone NZ, Molasses Mike, Mikey Hay, Fernando, all 8s. Where are the 9s? Lachlan McKenzie is still holding in with a 9. Amazing. Wow. Sugar Kitty on a 9. We've got at least a couple. Before the ASAT, I was hoping there would be more than that. It's tough to get to the end. So we've got Sugar Kitty, Lachlan. Maybe can't see any more. Where's Roy? He's saying a stinker, Roy. It's a stinker. It was Michael Jackson that was floating around their garden. Yes. The other two were made up by me. Okay, here's the ASAT at the end. It's not going to be kind. How many distilleries begin with the letter L? Straightforward enough. How many distilleries begin with the letter L? When I say distilleries, I'm speaking about Scotch malt distilleries, just to be clear. Is it about the same number as A, operational Islay distilleries, B, Scotch malt distilleries owned by Chivas Brothers, or C, Scotch malt distilleries beginning with the letter B? Asshattery, utter asshattery. I feel sorry for Lachlan and Sugar Kitty right at the end. Maybe there's one or two others that have. Graham Fraser has also put a bid in for his 10 out of 10. He's on 9 out of 9 as well. So I'm asking you very, very quickly. Operational Island Distilleries, Scotch malt distilleries owned by Chivas Brothers, Scotch malt distilleries beginning with the letter B, which is the same as the number of distilleries beginning with the letter L. I can tell you that Scotch malt distilleries beginning with the letter B is 19 or thereabouts. Scotch malt distilleries owned by Chivas Brothers is 12. Operational Islay distilleries is, well, depending on whether you count Port Ellen right now, is either 9 or 10, which coincidentally is the exact same as the number of distilleries, malt distilleries beginning with L. It's either 9 or 10. Some of you might choose to include Lone Wolf, which has recently changed its name to Brewdog. So it's actually 9, but once upon a time it would have been 10. But depending on or not whether you include Port Ellen, which is just on the cusp of opening, you can decide whether it's Islay distilleries are 9 or 10. Did Graham Fraser, did Lachlan, did Sugar Kitty make it through? Did anybody get a 10 out of 10? Graham Fraser did. Of course he took it home. Superstar. Jimmy Legg killing it on 9 out of 10. Superb. Graham Fraser's got a 10. Come on. James Morgan is in. Good to see you, James. So many names I'm missing. So many. Adrian Noodleman. That's a new name. Answering A. Absolutely got it right, Adrian. You got the ass hat right, and it looks like the first time I've welcomed you into. Come on. Where is Sugar Kitty? Celebrating 10 out of 10. Superb. Fantastic. Now let's see if Lachlan can bring it home. I can't see his name. Is he running around the room? 10 out of 10. Superstar Lachlan. Well done, my friend. It's a shame you weren't in it here earlier tonight to claim one of Wook's Aquaviti Barfly memberships. You'd have been able to light up the chat with your 10 out of 10 membership, buddy. Fantastic. We've got 3 10 out of 10s tonight. I think that is a pretty good result. I really do. I've had far too many drams poured tonight. It's just the way of whiskey, isn't it? On Islay, it's the same. Once upon a time, I think the first time I visited Islay, there were 7 operational distilleries, and then it became 8, and then Ardnahoe became 9, and Port Ellen will make it 10, and Portentruan will make it 11, and then Gartbreck will make it 12, and on and on and on. Soon we might not be able to do this in this format, but we'll continue to bring you the Peatfest every year. This year, it was worthy to look at Islay. And I'm sorry to everybody that loves Islay whiskey, that loves whiskey generally and peated whiskey generally, that I spent a lot of time being quite negative tonight. But I want to lay some of the blame back at the producers, back at the people behind the scenes, back at what they're bringing us. And I need them to understand that it's not just me, it's not just one man's opinion, but often it's the opinion of the feedback I get from the community as well. It's their sense of what's happening too. I'm not apologising. I'm just making sure that people know that I'm aware of it. Good. I'm going to lift this wee Lefroy 16 up. Going to catch a couple of comments before we close out tonight. Sandro is saying, delighted with my 7 out of 10 Aquavitae. Great quiz. Thank you, Sandro. Grazie mille, my friend. It's always great to welcome you in here. Chris Pollack is saying, how's the weather in Glasgow? Can't wait for the recycled review. The weather today has been atrocious. The traffic today was atrocious. Today it was, in Glaswegian would say it was minging today. It was not recycled review weather, but Chris, I'm mindful and I'm on it. Helen is still here. Fun vPub. Cheers, Roy. Roll on Islay in October. Can't wait to see you again, Helen. Thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. And Pedro's saying another great vPub. Thank you all for another great Thursday evening. Pedro in Brazil, hope you go off to have a great time, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us. Scott Allen is in saying good night, everyone. Great to see you, Scott. And Graham Young is saying cheers, folks. Good night. So we had 3 out of the 4 Arizona residents in, didn't we? Oh, no, we had them all in. They were all in, I think. No, Drew wasn't here tonight. Gene Kelly saying, Roy, Aquavita, yet another outstanding vPub Thursday evenings are the best of the week. Gene, thank you so much. Big hugs to you, buddy. Thank you. Thanks again. Looking forward to next week. And Peathead is saying, on that note, I call it a day. I'm going to hit the sack. Thanks again for organising Aquavita. Peatfest is fully up my sleeve. And thank you all. See you next time, Slanchiva. Of course, we had to have Frank Peathead in at the end. Superb. A dram in from Jimmy Head right at the end. From Jimmy Head, did I say? Jimmy Leg, right at the end. Seems to me you've handled all of that whiskey quite well. Impressed I am, thanks to everyone. Well, a lot of it, Jimmy, is still very much still in the glass. And that is how you handle that many whiskies. You don't drink it all. You just taste it, right? Tasting over drinking. Thanks for a great vPub, says Chris Pollack. And Fernando saying, thank you very much, Roy and all barflies. A pleasure to have shared with you another vPub. Cheers and good night to all. Gregor McQuee. Okay, I'm here and finally can focus. vPub can start now, mate. You can hit the rewind button and go right back to the start. Gregor, so great to welcome you in, buddy. The Dramface podcast has gone down a treat. Looking forward to getting some more out. I'm not even sure now that I've mixed these up to show Jimmy what I'm drinking. I'll just raise this glass of whatever Islay malt whiskey this is. I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved and look forward to welcoming you back here again next week for another Thursday night session. It's my privilege. I love it. Thank you all. Slanchiva. Wonderful stuff.